Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us today. We have a good crowd. We should be out here by 6:30. That's if the council doesn't talk too much. Today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2015. This is a regular voting meeting of the Prescott City Council. That said, any introductions, Chris?
No, sir. I think everybody's here.
Okay, we're honored to have, again, Pastor Jesse Lyles, Willow Hills Baptist Church, will lead us in the invocation, and Councilwoman Wilcox will lead us in the pledge.
All right, pray with me. Father God, we pause at the beginning of this time here to say thank you, Lord, for allowing us to live in such a privileged country and a privileged community like this one here. So thank you, Lord, for Prescott. And thank you, Lord, for the ability to breathe and enjoy life that you've given to us. And Father, we thank you that you give us wisdom when we ask. So Lord, I pray that you would open our ears to hear what you have to say to us as votes are being taken, decisions are being made. We thank you, Lord, for your leadership, your guidance, and help in every area. We give thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don, y'all wanna have a seat?
Oh, we're gonna get out of the way.
Okay. Are you on call? Roll call, please.
Mayor Kirkendall.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kuknio.
Here.
Councilman Arnold. He's absent, excused. Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Lamerson. Here. Councilman Lozelle.
Here.
Councilwoman Wilcox. Here. You have a quorum.
Okay. Mr. McConnell, any announcements you need to make?
I have no announcements, Mayor.
Okay. We have one proclamation today. Councilman Gregg will proclaim that May 17th through the 23rd is Emergency Medical Services Week.
Anybody else join us? Yeah, Jason, and Jamie join us? Jason. And Jamie join us.
Good afternoon.
How are you guys doing?
I'd like to proclaim Emergency Medical Service Week, May 17th through the 23rd, 2015. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, and others, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of the emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Marlon Kirkendall, Mayor of the City of Prescott, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the 23rd as Emergency Medical Services Week.
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to bring these three folks up. They're our three most recent hires. Jason B.A., Jamie Tauschauer, close, and Jason Hardison. All these folks are new valued members of this team, this community, and I think we're great. It's a great opportunity for these folks to enjoy the fire service as a career and the emergency medical services piece. And thank you, Mayor and council members, for honoring us with the proclamation.
Great.
Thank you.
Good job, Frank. Moving along, the consent agenda.
Item 1, consent agenda. A, approval of minutes for the city council meeting held on March 26, 2015. Item B, adoption of ordinance number 4939-1477, approving an amended public trail easement for the city trail through the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University campus. Ordinance number 4939-1477, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing amendment number 1 to the public trail easement with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Item C, approval for the fire department to apply for various fiscal year 2016 grant funding opportunities. Item D, adoption of the 5-year HUD Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan for the period beginning July 1st, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2020. Item E, approval of city contract number 2015-171 with Central Basin Roofing Incorporated in the amount of $18,773 for re-roofing Fire Station 51, General Fund. Item F, approval of city contract number 2015-170 for fire alarm intrusion monitoring and fire suppression services for various city facilities to B&W Fire Security Systems in an amount not to exceed $20,000 annually. Item G, approval of purchase of one each Fairbanks Model F2823C replacement pump for the Pioneer Boosters Pump Station from Hennessy Mechanical Sales, LLC, in amount not to exceed $10,874 Water Fund. And item H, approval of an extension of city contract number 2014-196E1 with Prescott Pro Sound, LLC for sound reinforcement services for the 2015 Summer Concert Series in an amount of $14,300, General Fund and Special Events.
Mayor?
Any questions?
Yeah, if I could request to have item H pulled from the consent agenda for more further conversation.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve all items except H?
Move to approve consent agenda items 1A through 1G.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Go ahead, Greg,
Yeah.
on item H.
I don't know who, what staff member, there you go. I was just wondering, 14,000 is not chump change, and I understand this is, a pretty big event, but I'm concerned about where it's being drawn out of is our general fund, which is being tapped, as you know, pretty hard. Wouldn't this be more appropriate under the bed tax?
I can only report, Councilman, that this is I think it's the third or fourth year that this particular cost has been in part of the special events fund that comes out of general fund. Now, whether or not from a legal standpoint could it be used for bed tax, I guess that would be for the attorney to decide, but this is the way it's been performed in the previous contracts.
If I might add to that, if you look at the listing of dates, this is primarily the focus of these events, and it's a series of events, is primarily our community here and not tourists. There may be tourists in town, obviously, who would go to the council or to go to the concerts, but certainly the focus is for Prescott residents.
Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you. Clarify for me again, Mr. McConnell, because, I forget from time to time. And as I expressed to you earlier in the week, I had some concerns with some items, not only on the consent agenda, but the regular agenda. And if I'm not mistaken, if certain things don't happen during this last election cycle, or we don't know where we're going to have the money to do certain things with, whatever council's sitting here at a given time can prioritize how to take care of what we got to take care of and do what we got to do. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Councilman, and to your point and to Councilman Lozelle's point with respect to the general fund and the challenges facing it, we have, for this upcoming summer, we have continued the events that have been produced or supported in the past, with the caveat that there is an item on the ballot on August 25th, which pertains to the general fund, specifically to public safety retirement funding. In the event that that ballot measure does not pass, then, as we've talked about many times, dramatic cuts are going to, of necessity, occur. But we have structured the budget, and certainly the fiscal year 16 budget beginning the 1st of July, to accommodate these events. But if there are reductions that need to be made, major reductions, they would begin in January of 2016.
Chris?
Yeah, Mayor, just wanted to say I think this $14,300 is money well spent. This is the quality of life in Prescott. It's the events that mostly take place during the week that you see downtown that draw everybody out there with their lawn chairs and everything. And with the amount of events that are included with this, Prescott Approach Sound isn't even really making much money on this $14,300, and I think there's 40-something events in this summer series. So anyway, I'd like to support item H.
Steve?
I've got a question. You know, often we talk about quality of life, and Chris, I don't disagree with you, but we have a lot of things in this town called quality of life. At some point, I would think we would have a Boy Scout troop or Girl Scout troop or somebody passing the hat down there on a Tuesday night asking for donations to help offset the costs and the times that we're in right now. If you could generate $1,000, you know, on 40 events, or, you know, $500 on 40 events, certainly we could offset a big chunk of this. Back in the day at Kenley Field, Jill, maybe you remember, but I can remember every softball game there ever was, they always passed the hat to help pay for the lights. And I don't think it's out of character to ask folks at every one of those events down there as part of the quality of life if they could share $1 or $2 in a donation.
Anyone else? Craig, on this, on item H, we're not talking, this is not in next year's budget. We're talking about current year budget.
Well, it actually spans 2 fiscal years, Mayor. The concert series begins this fiscal year.
Right.
And then there will be expenditures made in next fiscal year until the conclusion.
Yeah, so it's really a split between the 2
Yes,
fiscal years.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah, okay.
And I might add that originally this particular contract came to us for 2 years. However, for the reasons that I mentioned and we're all talking about here, we specifically restricted to a single year, which is the 2015 summer season.
Okay. Comments from the public on this item? Okay, do we have a motion to approve item H?
Mayor, I move to approve item H on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 5-1. Councilman Lozelle dissenting.
Okay, now we have a liquor license application on the consent agenda.
Mayor and Council, on today's liquor license consent agenda, there's one application for a Series 15 special event liquor license. It's from Prescott Frontier Rotary Club. The applicant is Walter L. Hammond, and the application has been reviewed and determined to be in compliance with city requirements and is being recommended for approval. Mr. Hammond is here if you have any questions.
Questions? Who's the 25%er?
That would be for the Prescott,
Rotary Club?
the Rotary Club will get the 25%, and then they will donate the remainder of the proceeds to the school.
Okay. Any questions on this one? No, sir. Comments from the public? Okay, do we have a motion?
Move to forward the Prescott Frontier Days Rotary Club special event liquor license application to the Arizona State Liquor Board with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, let's move into the regular agenda, item A.
Item 3A, public hearing and adoption of the CDBG 2015 Annual Action Plan.
Okay. Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As you're aware, the Citizen Advisory Committee started this planning process back in January of this year, and there was an application workshop in early February, and then the committee met twice in March total of about 7 hours to hear presentations from various groups that the 12 organizations that submitted applications for CDBG funding this year. And the table on the projector here, at the top of the table, shows those construction projects that the committee, advisory committee, is recommending for funding. Of the $234,142 that are anticipated for this program year 15, about $152,000, a little more than $152,000 are for the bricks and mortar or construction projects. In the bottom of the table are public service projects, and that totals $35,121. And we do believe that we have representatives of the various nonprofit organizations that are up for potential funding here today to answer any questions that you might have about their proposed activities. Also wanted to make you aware that we have the chair of the committee, Jerry Jones, is here in the audience should you have any questions for him. This is the final public hearing, and with the council's adoption today of the allocation plan, staff will submit by and meet the HUD's May 15th deadline. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Tom? Jerry Jones is here also. Jerry, you want to come down? Somebody might want to at least see you. I know you've prepared for hours for this.
I wouldn't put the S on the end of it. You got to wing it once in a while. We're very pleased to be a part of the CDBG Decision Committee, the Citizens Advisory Group, and we have a major process that we go through starting the first of the year to go through it and get the right people to, hopefully we make the right decisions for these people. It's a very tough decision to make. We have only so much money to play with, and we have a lot of requests coming in. In fact, this year, $220,000 for the construction portion. We only had $157,000 to play with. Same thing with the public service part. We had twice as much requests for the monies that we have. The decision is made by the 7-member council of the citizens and on the advisory group. If it was really easy, we know you guys would make that decision and have it done with. But we go through a lot of hassle with it, and we think we've done the right thing. So that's where we are with it right now.
Chris, you have a question?
No, Mayor, I just wanted to kind of kick back to when we were talking about this last time. I thought the lady from Community Legal brought up a really good point. When you look at most of these projects that are up there, they're really people-to-people, direct response to people in need. And spending the $61,000 on a parking lot, asphalt removal and replacement, where it is for a good organization that does a lot of good things in the community, I don't know if it necessarily falls on CDBG to hit it there. I know we do sidewalks in some neighborhoods, but I'm not going to vote against this, but just wanted to bring that up, that maybe in coming years it might be looked at a little differently with people to people.
Councilman, that is a tough decision that we looked at, and when you look at the funds that are available to you and the requests that come in, there is a juggling process involved in that to a certain extent. And yes, not everybody was in favor of doing that, but we do vote in the majority rules, and that's how it came about.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to tag on to something Chris is saying there. Jerry, not only your board, but the council has a lot of boards and commissions that we put together that examine and look at evidence, because just time restrictions, we just can't address everything. So we put in the hands of citizens that step up, such as yourself, and run these committees. Are they pitch perfect? Not always. But I agree. This young lady that stood up for the legal counsel, I agree that it probably could have been spent differently. But if she would have gotten the system earlier, her proposal might have been looked at. Is that correct?
By all means.
Okay.
We actually do a workshop, Councilman, in January this year, or February 4th we did it, and have the applicants come in. We even teach them how to fill out the applications, do the whole 9 yards. So the process is pretty thorough.
Right. And again, I want to thank you. You guys spent a lot of hours on this. I've attended a couple meetings as a liaison, and I see what you guys go through, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else, council? Any comments from the public? Daniel?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one. I told Ruth from Community Legal Services that citizens who want to be involved in this need to step up and get involved early in the process. When you're on one of these committees, it's so aggravating to have somebody come up at the last minute after all the work's done and say, we don't like this, we want to change that. I could mention somebody who came up very late in the game and handed us 22 pages of changes for the general plan. So I would just like to publicly tell everybody in the public, if you want to be involved in these decisions, come to the meetings. There's all kinds of public meetings. Show up. They'll listen to what you have to say. And if you don't show up for the meetings, don't gripe.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt the 2015 CDBG Annual Action Plan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Okay. Item B.
Item 3B, approval of city contract number 2015-179 with Civil Tech Engineering Incorporated for engineering services for the Crystal Lane realignment project in an amount not to exceed $68,971.
I'm over here this time. This is Steve Oros with Public Works. They're getting set up for the next item, so I'll be presenting from over here. This item is to award a contract to Civil Tech Engineering for the Crystal Lane realignment project. This is a project that's realigning Crystal Lane to meet up with the ADOT project that's going on right now over by Ruger Road, and also addressing the airport entrance on that side into the general aviation area in that area. It also involves looking at a possible parking facility for the airport to utilize for some of the businesses at that location. It's a small project, but it has several details that we have to address in terms of lead paint, asbestos potential in that old storage, not storage, but in the utility building at that location, also some geotech and drainage work. In January of this year, the city issued requests for proposal, received 4 of them from local engineers, and Civil Tech was the successful proposer. The award of the contracts hopefully this week. We would like to get the project moving to be under construction at the same time as Willow Creek Road realignment, which is going to start this fall, and try to get that area tightened up. The engineer estimate for construction is about $400,000 for the project, and the design cost is about 13.6%, a little higher than the average, but it is a small project, and there's still a lot of steps that we have to go through. The funding for this project's allocated in the Streets and Open Space Fund and is programmed. If there's any questions, be glad to answer them.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But let's go to council first.
Sure.
I have
Jane.
one question, Steve.
Yes.
I didn't see any mention in the staff report about the airport master plan. How does this project fit in the airport master plan?
Good question. We have been coordinating with the airport on this. They are part of the design team, and part of this design is to look at if the airport terminal is located on this side of the airport facility, how does this realignment work the best for that? If it's located on the other side, what are the options? So the airport is very involved in the design, and they will be part of the decision of how it's actually constructed.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Anyone else? My question, and I've had a couple of requests from the public. This is a relatively short project.
Yes.
A couple hundred feet?
200 to 300, depending on the design, yes.
Yeah. And that particular site was where the fuel farm was before it was moved down on the south side of the airport.
There are some other historic uses in the area. Yeah. There's a adjacent cemetery as well.
Yeah. And the question generally was when the fuel farm was cleared, that a lot of this work was done at that time. And I just glanced and I didn't see it, but there was also a question that about $7,000 was for working with the neighbors.
Yes.
There are no neighbors.
The key, in this case, neighbors is relative. It's the Ruger, Pure Wafer, the airport. Those are the considered neighbors for this project, and working with them. Ruger has a significant traffic flow with the 800 employees there. How do their travel patterns work with this project during construction and post-construction? So and the airport is a very key player with the parking, minimal disruptions to the general aviation facilities and the other businesses that are there on that side of the airport. It's the coordination with those neighbors is what we're looking at dealing with that item.
Yeah. So those 2 or 3 neighbors, that's a $7,000.
Over the life of the project, it's very possible, especially during construction and dealing with all those various moving pieces and significant parts of our economy.
Yeah. Well, I want to just agree with our fellow councilman that this budget's tough. Mm-hmm. And we need to, if it's $3,000, we need to find it. Or if it's $7,000, we need to find it.
Okay.
And so I think we need to look at all expenses, all costs, far greater than we ever have in the past. Like I say, these comments came from the industry.
Sure.
That are doing business every day in Prescott, and they realize the tough times we're in. Absolutely. So I have a hard time of. I've been trying to watch the projects for a few years, and 10% seemed to be the norm.
Mm-hmm. That's
we
correct.
could always anticipate what the project's going to cost from looking at the design. In this case, when it jumps to 14 to 16% for a 250-foot project, I think it brings questions to my mind. So, but if y'all are happy with it, why?
We did work with the consultant on this. Their initial cost for this project was significantly higher. It was nearly double. We did work with them on the scope and adjusting elements. There is some of those line items at the end. I believe the one you were referring to, the $7,000, is a allowance that we may use, we may not. We may need to deal with the FAA on some clearance issues, which could eat up a lot of that quickly, or it could be just left as a line item that's not used. So there's probably a few of those items that are not to exceed limits, or we wanted to have those set aside and not have to come back to council because we missed something. We wanted to try to think through and have things allocations so we can meet unexpected issues.
If you're happy with it,
yes.
We're going. Anyone else? Any comments from the audience? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'd recommend that we move to approve city contract number 2015-179 with Civil Tech Engineering Incorporated for engineering services for Crystal Lane realignment project in the amount not to exceed $68,971.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay, item C.
Item 3C, award of city contract number 2015-183 to SAK Construction LLC for cured-in-place sewer pipe rehabilitation during a 2-year period on an as-needed basis, utilizing pricing through the Cooperative Purchasing Network, contract number R5143, in amount not to exceed $1,500,000 wastewater fund.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This item is to secure a unit price contract for rehabilitation of sanitary sewer mains through the use of technology called cured-in-place piping. Not everyone may be aware of this technology, so I have a brief 1-minute video to show you how it works, and I'll talk you through a little bit. If you could direct your attention to the screen. and I'll try and make it a little bit bigger here. This technology is used across the world. We've used it here in Prescott before in other subdivisions. This contract will allow us to use it as needed.
Flagship cured-in-place pipe technology, or CIPP, is a pipe.
Thank you, Mark. Essentially, there's a van that pulls up, and it's got this woven resin, and that's what you're seeing in the picture here. And it's a woven fabric, and they impregnate it with resin, and they blow it through the system kind of inside out, and then they cure it with steam. That steam gets it to push out and adhere to the walls. It creates a seamless a pipe inside a pipe. This right here is showing a robotic camera that goes through the main and recuts the service or reinstitutes the services. So we can effectively, through this technology, reline a pipe without putting a shovel in the ground. We don't disrupt traffic. We don't have to patch the asphalt back. It's a very effective technology. It does have its limits, obviously. We can't upsize the pipe using this, so it doesn't work in applications where there's capacity deficiencies. But where we do have a pipe that is of sufficient size to meet the needs of the community through build-out, this is a good technology to use. As I mentioned, it's a seamless product, so we don't have problems with infiltration, exfiltration, water getting in or out of the pipes. We don't have problems with roots getting in the pipes. Very, very effective. So this contract that's before you today for recommendation is necessary to support the city's ongoing program to reline deteriorated sewer mains within our wastewater collection system. Once again, this does not work on pipes that need to be upsized, so it's not the magic bullet that's going to do everything. It's only in specialized applications. But the city has identified several projects, and they're listed in the council report where this technology could be implemented. If you have any questions on those projects, I can address those specifically, but we're looking at areas that have fractured pipes or they have failed linings, a variety of issues. And pending award of this contract, we could begin doing this as early as June, maybe July. As I mentioned, there's really no disruption major disruption to traffic. As you saw, there is a truck that pulls up on scene, and there'll be some cones around some manholes. But other than that, there's no backhoes, there's no trenching. This will be done during daytime hours. We'll be able to keep everybody in service when this happens. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Steve?
I have two, Joel, if I could, please. Number one is, what type of warranty does that have with it?
You know, Councilman, that's a good question. And I don't have the answer for you right now. I'll need to get back to you on it. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, and then number two, we've had issues for a long time that circle around our drainage areas, our creek beds, where the majority of our transmission and trunk lines are in the creek beds. Is this system able to be used within those size of pipes in the creek beds? And if it is, why wouldn't we be addressing those first when we know it's a health and safety issue for our reservoirs by having leakage in those pipes?
Excellent question, Councilman. We are, in fact, one of the initial projects that's been identified is a 10 to 12 inch trunk main, a little over a mile long. So we are addressing that one first. There's another large diameter 18 inch near the Dameron street that will be replaced as well. We're not doing all the collectors or transmission sewer mains because some of them need to be upsized, and to go in and invest the money now only to go back and tear them out later is not the best use of our money. And some of our transmission mains, or transmission's not the right word, collectors are in good shape. We have cambered them, we have identified where the problems are. So we're targeting specific known problems at this point in time. As we venture out and do more camera work, we'll be able to utilize this contract on an as-needed basis to fix those areas.
I would suspect that camera's your best weapon to find out which ones are the problem child, but I would think that we would definitely find out what the warranty is, as well as address the ones that are in our creek beds first, so that they're not leaking into our lakes.
Absolutely.
Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Joel? I got a bunch of stuff written down here on this, you know, being asked to spend $1.5 million of a money strapped to communities' hard-earned money. You talked about through build-out. From a perceptional perspective, what does that mean to you in Public Works? What does that mean, through build-out?
Through build-out. Well, when I make that statement, I'm referencing back to our water and wastewater models. And through that model, we started with some planning framework, and that all starts with water resource, water availability. How much water do we have? How many rooftops can we serve? From there, we take off and apply that available water that we have in our water portfolio, working with our water resources department, to determine what size pipes we're going to need to serve that population. And so that's build out.
Okay, now I understand that, but I think it's important for the public to be consistently updated on what that means. And whether it's through the general plan process, through annexation process, through water allocation process, planning and development, P&Z type stuff, I think it's incumbent on we up here, whether it be in those meetings or in this meeting, to continually remind the public, here's where we're at, here's what we have, here's what we're planning on doing. And when you talked about this type of process will keep us from tearing up new streets or newly remodeled streets, do you have any idea what percentage of the city streets in the city of Prescott, as we live, breathe, and speak today, meet the criteria for what this process would be suitable for?
That's a good question. We have approximately 330 miles of gravity sewer main, and approximately 2/3 of that's within our roads. So somewhere around 220 miles of sewer mains within our roads. Now, some of those sewer mains, and I would venture a guess that a good portion, more than half of them, could utilize this technology. The other half need to be upsized, and so this technology would not apply.
So the half that you're talking about that would, as we look around the community of Prescott as it's constructed today, those are not as subject to being ripped up and torn up in the near future because they're already at build out in many of those neighborhoods. Am I correct?
If I understand your question correctly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question, Joel. I mean, this looks like a great product, especially if you want to talk about convenience to our population. But I just have a question. Obviously, I should say obviously, I'm hoping that this saves not just the convenience part, but this saves money in the long run to do it this way than to tear up. And I'm looking at what you've got on your list here. It's around 7,000 linear feet. Is this $1.5 million over the next 2 years for these 7 projects, or is it half the town that you just told Councilman Lamerson?
Well, I don't, if that's what the question was, I misunderstood it. This 1.5 million will not do half of the half that I had mentioned. This 1.5 million is what the city of Prescott has budgeted annually for the next 2 years. And to answer the first part of your question, this is a cost-effective methodology or a method to rehabilitating sewers. It's about half the price as a typical trench where you open cut the street, relay the pipe.
Let alone then once you cut that street, if you just patch it, then you actually lose the integrity of that road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So yeah, I guess let's go step back a little bit. So is the 7,000 or so feet the 1.5, is there more projects that this 1.5 will cover?
I have initially identified about 7,800 feet. That will cost the city somewhere in the neighborhood of about $450,000, which will leave us another approximately $1 million to identify needs as we move forward and use our camera.
I divided the 7,000 in 1.5 and it wasn't looking like it's too cost effective, but that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Gene.
I was going to ask the question about warranty, but Steve Blair jumped the gun there. If you don't know the warranty, have you, do you have any information about experiences with other cities and wastewater districts with this type of process?
Absolutely. We have experience right here in the city of Prescott. We have utilized this trenchless technology in Yavapai Hills, and we have gone back since then and cameraed that line, and it's flawless. It looks like brand new pipe. So we've had great success here in the city of Prescott with this. As I mentioned, this is used worldwide to rehabilitate sewers.
Okay, one other question. Is it possible that that little robot would miss a service line, plug up a service line, and we'd have a backup into private property, making the city responsible?
There's provisions. Prior to installing this liner in the pipe, we do a preconditioned video where we go and and either we can do that with our own staff or we could do it through this contract, where we go and identify exactly where every service is. And not only where it's at, but is it live or is it abandoned? And so we have that choice to make then. Do we want to reinstall it or not? And so we can make sure that we don't miss a service by going and doing the investigative work up front.
Okay, thanks.
Steve again.
I just want some clarification, if the city manager wouldn't mind doing it. You know, we're in a budget crunch, and people are going to be saying to me, if you're in such a budget crunch, how in the world are you going to spend, you know, $1.5 million? So would you explain to the public that this is a secured fund based upon wastewater, and it does not come out of the general fund?
This Councilman, this is a separately accounted fund, the wastewater fund. The revenue to the fund appears on utility bills, and the only authorized use of that fee or rate, utility rate, is for wastewater. This has nothing to do directly with the general fund, which is the fund that we're having the most challenges and tension within.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, Joel, thanks for bringing this forward. It looks like we're using a new but proven technology. Probably save us a lot more than digging it up and replacing all the pipes themselves. So thank you and staff for bringing this to council.
Jim.
Thank you. Just one more question, Joel. Yeah, again, thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you for the technology demonstration and all that other stuff. I trust that this will also go into the data bank of the models that we've put in place over the last several years that give Public Works the opportunity to see what needs to be done where in the projected expense to the residents of the community.
That's absolutely correct. We do track this information, and we know exactly where it's implemented, and then can track our costs moving forward.
Thank you.
My turn. Joel, are we considering this a single source type of proposal?
The procurement method for this is using a cooperative use contract. This has been bid out before. This is not a sole source whatsoever. The state, or actually the cooperative purchasing network, put out a bid for vendors to bid on, and SAC was the low bidder on that. We are simply using a procurement that was accomplished at I don't want to say it, at a state level, I'll say, more or less.
Okay, well, my question comes from, we have a one-page letter from the Cooperative Purchasing Network, and I haven't been able to find out who they are and who they're made up of, who are their members, and all the background on them. We were not able to find that. It appears from the letter that they're in Houston, Texas. We have no information on who SAC Construction is, period. And I have a real problem of obligating potentially $100 or $1.5 million on something that is not. We have no way of knowing whether they're competitive. We're assuming that the TCPN is somebody, but we don't know. And SAC Construction apparently is a subcontractor of some type, and there's a price sheet here, But I really question on whether we know that whoever SAC is, do we have data on them? You said you've used them before. I don't remember a contract with SAC Construction, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
Mayor and members of council, we have not had a contract with SAC in the past. At least the city of Prescott has not. Public Works has done our research. We've done our research to talk to SAC, to talk to agencies that SAC has provided service to. We're very comfortable with that contractor.
Okay, now SAC is located in Missouri, and they will travel to Prescott?
They have offices around the United States. They provide services throughout Arizona. The Cooperative Purchasing Network is simply an agency that collects competitive bids that municipalities and agencies can utilize. Much like the city has used another HGAC, Houston Gallatin, NJPA, there's the SAVE network, there's numerous entities out here that do competitive bids like this that open them up for agencies to use. That's what the Cooperative Purchasing Network is, and our contract is not through the Cooperative Purchasing Network. Our contract is directly with SAC. And once again, the city has checked out SAC's references and feels that we're very comfortable with them. Mr.
Manager, you're content that this does not need to be a competitive bid at all? I have a hard time sometimes with our state purchasing, because I have found several places that we could have beat the heck out of the state contract. But we just take for granted that some of these contracts are the best price, and it's not true.
Well, I think,
but it's easy and it's simple. It doesn't require us to do a lot of homework, but I think our role is different than doing what's simple and easy. It's to do whatever is necessary to get the best price we can for the citizens of Prescott.
A couple of comments, Mayor. First of all, this type of work is specialty work. This work is performed by national contractors. That's why, for example, you'll get a national firm that has offices around the United States, regions, if you will, to do this kind of work. Being specialty work, you're not going to get your local contractor or probably even state standalone contractor to do it. We certainly could have put more specific information like we have in some of the other preceding council memos for HGAC or the other purchasing cooperatives and so forth, so we'll endeavor to do that. But this is competitively bid nationally, so it meets, all procurement requirements, state and city. Secondly, it is specialty work. There are only, in fact, when you're doing this kind of specialty work, I think that we would not be well served to go with anything but a very specialized contractor. So perhaps some additional information addressing or anticipating some questions could have been provided, but I think in this case, this is the way to go. It's pretty much the only way to go.
Well, I will vote no on this because $1.5 million with 3 pages of documentation, I'm not. We require for a little $15,000 or $20,000 contract to have this much documentation and support for whatever we're doing.
Yeah. Mayor, as an alternative, I might offer that we could certainly continue it to the next meeting and provide additional information, and that way you would have the information you're asking for.
Okay. I would suggest that's a good idea. I would like to see the warranty, or at least know what the warranty is. Is it good until we leave, or is it good for 10 years?
Lifetime.
Do we, comments from the public? Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to table this until they can bring more information to us.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Thank you.
Passes 5-1. Mayor Pro Tem Cugno dissenting.
Okay. What's next? I lost my sheet.
Item 3D, award of city contract number 2015-180 for painting 5 city fire station equipment bays to Riddle Painting and Coatings Company in the amount of $35,088, general fund.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We have 5 equipment bays at various fire stations throughout the city that have an accumulation of exhaust soot and particulates on the ceiling and walls of the bays due to years of accumulation. Prior to installing the recently approved air scrubbing machinery that we're installing at the fire station bays, we were wanting to go in there and do a thorough removal of the accumulated soot and exhaust particulates prior to painting the bays. The Facilities Management Division conducted an invitation for bid process, and the scope of work includes removing the exhaust particulates with trisodium phosphate, rinsing all of the surfaces to make sure that the trisodium phosphate is removed, patching all surface holes and cracks, priming the surfaces for paint, and then painting the surfaces with a light gray paint. 3 bids were received. And based upon the bids that were received, recommendation of award to Riddle Painting as the lowest responsible bidder is recommended. There is funding in the current year fiscal year capital budget for this item. These painting services, in addition to what the exhaust systems are going to cost, will come in for a combined about $105,000, which is substantially less than what was budgeted at $160,000. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
Questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Steve, you're first.
Again, going back to the warranty question, you know, often I see these vendors lists and I see a local contractor here in the city, including tax, and I just wonder if there's a warranty issue, if the company from Phoenix is going to be as responsive as somebody locally would be responsive to the needs of any kind of warranty repair. Do we have warranty on this product?
Councilman, I don't believe we asked for any warranty in particular. Once the building's painted to our satisfaction, whatever scuff marks might get on the walls thereafter are not going to be covered under a warranty. We did ask for an increased certificate of liability insurance because there's a lot of equipment in these bays, and so we didn't want the vendor coming in and damaging anything and not having enough insurance coverage. So we did ask for the insurance increase.
Is that a paint over, or are they going to clean the surface before painting?
Yes, they'll be cleaning the surfaces before painting.
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. It's probably not a very bright question, but I want to hear it publicly stated anyway. I would have assumed, just by the definition of the word soot and accumulated, that this poses a health risk for our fire department personnel that work in those conditions.
Yes, Councilman. If the soot's on the wall, unless it's disturbed, I don't think it's going to cause a health problem, but there's potential for that. And so we're getting the new air scrubbers in and at the same time cleaning up the base so that it's a much better
They used to say
environment.
that about asbestos, too, so I'm just glad we're taking care of it.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor. Stephanie, and I read in here, just to make it clear, I want to add to what Jim is stating. You know, this is coming out of the general fund, but it is a preventative measure before we put the new scrubbers in.
Yes.
So it'd be, you know, you want a clean surface. You're not sucking all this stuff into a brand new unit that we're
Exactly.
getting ready to purchase.
Yes, and it'll refresh the equipment bays. I don't think they've
And
been
this
painted in
has nothing to
years.
do with aesthetics. This has to do with health and safety.
Completely with health and safety, not aesthetics.
Thank you.
Correct.
Anyone else? Mark, I noticed that 2% discount, net 20. Should that reflect itself in the motion? Do you expect that we'll pay the bill in 20 days?
We'll pay it as quickly as it gets approved through the department.
Mayor, as soon as we get the sign-off on the project, we'll make sure that we get the invoice processed in time to get that discount.
Okay, that's $700.
Yes, sir.
Comments from the public? Okay, do we need a motion?
Mayor, Move to approve award of city contract number 2015-180 for painting 5 city fire station equipment bays to Riddle Painting and Coating Company in the amount of $35,088.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
E.
Item 3E, approval amendment number 1 to city contract number 2015-098A1 for household hazardous waste disposal services with Clean Harbors Environmental Services Incorporated in the amount of $47,610, solid waste fund.
And Mayor, in case, unless council objects, I'm going to stick around for this one because I don't really believe it has conflict of interest, even though it has to do with waste.
I don't object.
Mayor and Council, the Solid Waste Division hosted the annual Household Hazardous Waste event back on Sunday, March 22nd. This service was provided at no additional cost to participating City of Prescott and Yavapai County residents. And event personnel verified residency through a driver's license or a state-issued identification check. During the event, the division collected in excess of 92,000 pounds of material and serviced 762 verified residents. This year's total weight well exceeded last year's event by 44% more. The division had budgeted $70,000 for the event based on the 4 prior events that we've held. However, because of the participation at this event and the increase in quantities, $70,000 was a good guess, but unfortunately not enough to cover the cost of the event. So we need additional funding of $47,610 to pay the invoice. Yavapai County did participate in this event, and they will be cost sharing to the tune of almost 22% or close to $28,000 reimbursement to Solid Waste Fund for the event. A lot of the items that were collected at this event were paint materials. I've said before that we want to have a good educational process in place to educate our residents how to properly dispose of these materials, not to hang on to it to bring to the event. That is an environmentally good way to dispose of things, but there's things you can do all year long to not build up quantities to save for the event. I don't want to encourage that. I'd rather have them properly disposed of as need be throughout the year. To that end, the Solid Waste Division is going to initiate a household hazardous waste awareness and information campaign. We're going to try to better educate our residents so that they don't hang on to the materials and bring them down to the event. I've said before, eventually we would like to work our way out of this business through educating people. People can reuse the paint, offer it to their neighbors, take it back to where they bought it, things like that. And that was I think it was about 50% of the material that was brought in was paint this time. And it was also a better advertised event, so I think that's why we had the participation rate that we did. And people brought quantities that they'd had stored up at their homes. Funding is available in the Solid Waste Fund to pay for this increased cost. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at this time. And I have the Solid Waste Superintendent here with some, and he can provide answers also.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor. Stephanie, I agree with you. That was what I was going to say, is a bigger awareness for, I was there that day, and it was lined up pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
But an awareness on how to properly dispose of it, and especially latex paint. You can let it sit out and dry. You can give it to your neighbor. You could paint a sheet of plywood about 1,000 times and dispose of it that way.
Right.
So there's ways to get rid of it safely and not burden something like this. Also, next year, we maybe have less, but as a council person next year, this comes to me, I thank the county for being involved, but if we're not going to restrict that they be City of Prescott residents, then I'd like to see some cooperation from Chino and Prescott Valley and anybody else has got groundwater they're worried about to come to us and kind of help out on this.
Yes, Councilman. We have intergovernmental agreements with the surrounding communities. This year, it was just the county that elected to participate with us. Next year, hopefully, those other communities will budget some funds for it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
In looking at the invoice from Clean Harbors, I'm wondering if all of these items were included in the contract, the original contract we had with them. For example, travel, $8,853. What was that travel for?
Go ahead, Councilwoman. My apologies.
Well, there are just a number of itemized things that kind of surprised me that we're paying for those. I don't remember the original contract. Did we agree to pay that itemization?
The vendors that provide these services usually provide a listing of just line items because it's unknown what exactly might show up at the event. So they usually have a huge list of line items and a price per line item for those items. Now, this vendor has to come out of the valley. They come up the night before because they're there first thing in the morning. They have to get everything set up for the event. It takes them probably a good couple of hours to get ready for the event alone. And then they are processing materials throughout the day during the event. And then long after the community has stopped coming, we stopped the event at 1 o'clock. Long after that, the vendor sticks around. They have to package everything up, get a manifest together. Solid waste staff verifies what exactly has been palletized and going on the truck so that we actually know that the invoice they present back to us did include all the items that we had and that they weren't charging us for more than we had necessarily collected. And then they head back to Phoenix and dispose of the materials. So it is rather complicated. It's long. It's expensive. I think the vendor brought about 20 employees up, 18 employees with them to put this event on. And so it is substantial. They have to come up and house their people, feed their people, et cetera.
Jim?
Thank you. Stephanie, if I didn't hear you correctly, feel free to correct me. You said you had a number that were verified city residents?
We had 762 verified residents, and that was between the county participants and the city's participants.
And how many people feeding off the trough did we have that weren't county or city?
Councilman, from what I understand, we didn't have any. We had established a rate this year in case we did get those people in through the line that weren't in a participating agency, but we didn't have any charges for non-participants.
That's good to hear.
Okay.
So are we developing a process that we can have a charge for folks that want to get rid of this stuff here again to keep it out of the aquifer, aquifers, because don't forget you also have the agua fria out there, and to keep it out of the watersheds. This may be something that would be best looked at some point in the future as to how to ensure, water runs downhill. It does. And it keeps ending up out there in the middle of our two reservoirs, okay, of which now we're going to be subject to having to do something with to keep ADEQ off our back. So I just keep bringing that type of stuff up. So
I hear what you're saying, Councilman. Like I said, our biggest priority is to try to educate people so that the size of the events gets smaller. And then we will be in touch with the surrounding communities to try to get them on board. We really don't want to encourage people just showing up at the event and having a fee. We would rather have the participation and knowing that they're supposed to be coming into this event and they're authorized, and that somebody else is going to be picking up a share of that cost. Because the fee we charge, we just took a rough estimate this year and came up with like 3 tiers, and I think the minimum fee was about $50. Yeah, $50. So you kind of eyeball the truck and you go, oh, $50. Is that going to cover the cost of disposal? Maybe, maybe not, but we don't want to necessarily turn them around either. So the idea is to advertise it, have people show up that are truly participants for the event, and discourage the use of the event by other people.
Yeah, Mayor, I just looking over the invoices and stuff, when they bid this, Did anybody else bid for this cleanup besides Clean Harbors?
No, Mayor Pro Tem, I believe they have a contract with the City of Mesa. Who's it with? This is Mike Carr, he's the solid waste superintendent. He actually procured the vendor.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So we use HGAC, and there are multiple companies that are through them. So we researched all the companies that are providing the prices. We compared with last year's event, and this company is working with the City of Mesa. So instead of going through HGAC, we used City of Mesa's contract pricing because it was more competitive. But it was also better pricing than the company we used last year. So it was just the volume of vehicles and weight that really took it to us this
And did
year.
they bring up heavy equipment for this?
Well, they brought tractor trailers, 3 tractor trailers, and vehicles, but we provided forklifts and such.
I see. I just was looking at the descriptions, and it seems like they got equipment operators here, and it looks like on Saturday they made time and a half. It looks like on Sunday they made double time, and the equipment operator's like at $96 an hour.
So Saturday they came and set up the event footprint, which was laying out the viscreen plastic and the cones, and we had personnel there doing traffic control. So Saturday was a big setup in the afternoon, and yeah, they spent probably 6 to 8 hours there, I would say, plus travel time coming up. And then on Sunday, we actually started at 6 o'clock in the morning, and most people didn't go home till 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So, and they also had to drive back down to Phoenix. So there was a lot of travel time. It was a long, long day.
And just when they bid the job, do they bid it on tonnage that they take away, or they bid it?
They give us a price per, I think it's even on there how they price it per barrel, containers, totes, gallons for certain things. It depends on the commodity and how much of it they're able to take away. So we did get a price sheet. Everything was priced out. I will admit the labor rates and all that, when it all came out and how much we actually worked and how much work went into it, it was shocking to see the amount of cost, but it was in the bid and it was competitive with the other companies. It just turned out to be a substantial amount of labor that was needed to get the event completed.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just
Jane.
have one more question. I'm still having a problem with the original contract. It was an amount not to exceed $70,000, and now the company's coming back and they want $117,000.
Councilwoman Wilcox, the original contract wasn't necessarily for an amount because we didn't know the quantity of the items that would come in. So we did a best guess for the council memo, and we just said not to exceed 70,000, figuring based on prior history, that should be enough to cover the event. So the actual contract didn't have a total amount because we didn't know the total amount. We wouldn't know it until after the event. So basically, we have our professional services agreement, the city's agreement, and as an exhibit to that is their proposal, which, like I said, is a line item. So if a 55-gallon drum of oil was going to cost $100, we knew it was going to cost $100. We didn't know if we'd get 2, 3, or 4 of them. So we couldn't give a total amount in the contract. So it was just a best guess on our part when we did the council memo. We figured it wouldn't go over the 70, but unfortunately it did.
Okay.
It's a huge event.
This year was, I mean, last year, I participated in the past 5 or so we've done, and this year was the busiest I've ever seen it.
Absolutely, yeah. I've worked the last 6 of them, and this was definitely by far the busiest event. And not just the number of vehicles, but the volume that people were dropping off was outrageous. We don't even include, at the solid waste division, we try to do stuff to lower the cost. So we diverted some of the materials. We accepted over 70 automotive batteries, 24 refrigerators that we had to pay someone to evacuate Freon out of, 1,270 gallons of used oil that we took and paid another company to come and take outside of the hazardous waste event agreement, and then 400 gallons of used antifreeze. So it wasn't just the paint, no, it was just a combination of materials, and people were bringing in, I think our average was 154 pounds per vehicle. So it's a substantial amount of material.
Were we
people
paying
bringing.
For the evacuation of Freon, or were the individual? We were.
Yes.
And that's about what, like $48 a fridge or something like that?
We did 24, and it costs, I believe, 500. $510. We use a local vendor to do that for us.
What didn't go in the air?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll move to approve Amendment 1 to City Contract number 2015-098A1, and just be happy that all that stuff didn't get dumped out there in Watson Woods or something.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Item F.
Thank you.
Item 3F, approval of 1, award of city contract number 2015-182 to MRM Construction Services Incorporated for the rehabilitation and structural upgrade of an apron area used by the U.S. Forest Service and other general aviation aircraft in the amount of $1,337,740.54. 2, authorization of services number 8 for construction phase administrative services by Dibble Engineering in an amount not to exceed $160,521, city contract number 2014-029A8. 3, performance of night work for the apron reconstruction, and 4, an increase to the Arizona Department of Transportation 90% funding grant to reflect the award of city contract number 2015-182, Airport Fund.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor and honorable members of the City Council. It's John Cox with the airport. This agenda item actually has 4 items, and with the council's mayor's indulgence, I'll just address each one of these individually. The first item up, basically the background for this is the city and the United States Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Forest Service, entered into a land lease basically in April of 1989. Part of the lease is for utilization of what we call some general aviation apron, which during the forest fire season, the heavy fire season, which basically extends from now to possibly July or early August, the Forest Service utilizes that for their operation. The remainder of the year is available for general aviation, large corporate aircraft, and other general aviation aircraft on that area. With that concept in mind, the responsibility for maintaining and reconstructing this airport apron is the responsibility of the city. So I do want to state that at this time a new lease with the U.S. Forest Service is being negotiated and hopefully will be presented to the City Council shortly. If I can draw the council and the mayor's attention to the actual map that I have on the board here, I'll show you the actual project site itself. So basically this area, as part of the Airport Department of Transportation's pavement preservation program, they identified these areas specifically, which you see in Taxiway D area, located here, as well as the ingress and egress areas to the Forest Service station reloading areas were identified as part of the worst sections of pavement on the airport property. And subsequent to that, the state has awarded the city a $1.6 million project, both design and construct, and for construction administration services. The City Council did accept that award in the fall, and subsequent to that, we had contracted with Dibble Corporation Construction for design for this project. So the project was actually designed, and we did go out for a public bid for this project. So the first part of this agenda item is actually to award the city contract to MRM Construction. We do actually have 2 members of MRM Construction in the audience today, should anybody ask any particular questions regarding the contractor. There were actually 6 bids that were received from the April 16th bid phase, and for this reconstruction project, 5 of the 6 bids were acknowledged receipt of all 3 addenda items that included their 10% bid bond. So the apparent low bidder, MRM Construction Services, their bid was $1,337,740.54, which was about 3.7% over the engineer's estimate. The rest of the bidders bid anywhere between $1.4 million and $2 million for this project. So MRM Construction Services submitted all the required documents and the bonds at the time of the bid and is registered through the state of Arizona as a disadvantaged business enterprise fund. So they intend to self-perform approximately 86% of this project as a DBE firm. Their references were verified for MRM and very positive responses were received. Are there any questions regarding action agenda item number 1, the construction award?
Mayor.
Steve?
I have several. Number one, the 86%, what is the 14% they are not going to do?
Those would actually be subcontractors to MRA Construction, sir. Okay. They're self-performing, which is their staff that actually do the construction with their own equipment and material that they own.
The other question I would have, or another one that I would like a response to, is who is going to be the inspector to make sure the asphalt is to the grade that it needs to be, recognizing slurry bombers are extremely heavy when fully loaded and making turns that would ripple asphalt. I would like to know who the inspector is, or who's going to do that, the city, whether it's Dibble that's going to do it in cooperation with the city. And also I question why we're not using concrete instead of asphalt.
To answer your second question first, yeah, the concrete, the rigid concrete, if you will, is definitely more expensive. The staging areas actually that I can identify on the map is actually in concrete, and that's where the aircraft will actually stage. So what you see in the red hash marks here and the potential expansion area, those are concrete where the actual aircraft will be parked, and most of the weight bearing for the wheels will exist in that area. The rest of the asphalt areas, if you will, is where the aircraft taxis, so they're mobile in that area. By the way, I do want to mention, that's a very good comment, council member, is that these areas will be stressed for the heavier weighted aircraft, if you will, a larger aircraft design, and that is specifically why it would be advantageous for general aviation purposes once the Forest Service would be completed with that. So
who's going to inspect that?
Yes, sir, and that's a very good question. That is approval item number 2 that I'll be glad to segue to, but that is authorization for construction services with Dibble Engineering to perform the construction administration for the actual pavement that they have designed.
Okay. And the last one would be, I've been on the warranty kick today. What's the warranty on that asphalt?
The warranty on the asphalt, I may ask our Dibble consultant to provide a comment to that.
Standard construction warranty is 1 year. We normally do an inspection in 11 months to confirm that it's built and has performed for plan, and maintenance is taken over by the airport from that point forward.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I would like to leave that option to MRM Construction. If they would like to extend that warranty period, we'd certainly be gracious in accepting that, sir.
We would indeed.
Item number 2 is, is the Construction Administration Award to Dibble Engineering. And Dibble did provide the design services. By the way, I'd like to, again, ask the City Council and the Mayor to review the map. What we have here is basically in green is the existing pavement areas, if you will, and this is the portion that per this city contract that is going to be reconstructed from MRM Construction. I'd like to add to, I'm sorry, it's the items that are paved, not in green, but the items that are paved is what is actually being reconstructed through the ADOT grant. The items in green, however, is part of the expansion that the U.S. Forest Service is interested in doing as a potential extension to this construction project. So they're going through a procurement right now where they may possibly be awarding the construction phase for this expansion that's going to coincide with the construction from the city and the ADOT project. So the Forest Service contracted with Dibble Engineering as well to perform the design services for the actual expansion that they will be conducting with their own USDA Forest Service funds. I'd like to mention too that there are 4 members of the U.S. Forest Service, the senior leadership from the local Forest Service here too in the audience should anybody have any questions specific to the Forest Service.
I'd like to thank them for being part of our fabric in the community to supply us with slurry bomber activities. I think that people really are not noticing that they're out there, but when we have a fire, we certainly notice them, so thank you very much.
Thank you. The agenda item number 2 is the award of the construction administration services under City Contract 2014-029 for airport design and engineering services that were approved by the City Council September 24th of 2013. The cost for the construction administration services during the entire construction phase is $160,521, which was negotiated through airport staff and approved by ADOT for this amount that ADOT is contributing 90% for. So the contractors that are subcontractors to Dibble Engineering, which are local and are providing services to, is Civil Tech and ETC, and they're providing approximately 39% of the $160,000 construction administration. So are there any questions regarding agenda item number 2?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Sort of. You know, when you hear 1-year warranty on $1 million expenditure, that gets your attention. On the other hand, is that standard within the industry, and is it what FAA expects? You know, they put up most of this money, and state puts up some more. I mean, is this sort of a standard bill of fare? I mean, I think it's kind of fair to let the residents and the taxpayers of the city know that we're just not sitting up here spending their money with no warranty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the caveat from the ADOT, the Department of Aeronautics, and the FAA is they would fund reconstruction. They'll fund full-depth reconstruction. They'll fund a complete removal and replacement of pavement as long as the local forces consciously maintain those pavement surfaces to extend the useful life of it. And for example, the FAA would not grant any funds if there was a section of pavement out there that only lasted for 5 years and the local entities did not invest any effort or materials to extend the life of that pavement and went back to the FAA requesting a grant to replace this after 5 years of utilization when the, I want to say the estimated useful life of that is between 12 and 15 years. So that's certainly one opportunity. As far as a warranty, Councilmember Lamerson, you know, again, that area is utilized certainly very heavily during the fire season. It's utilized on a, I want to say a temporary basis when we do have some corporate jets and some larger general aviation aircraft come in here. They will actually park on the concrete section. That area will be beefed up again as far as the weight-bearing capacities. So, you know, we don't anticipate that any aircraft that is allowed to fly into Prescott Airport would have any immediate impact to that pavement.
Thank you for your explanation, etc. And again, to chime in with Blair, we really appreciate the Forest Service being here. We like seeing those slurry bombers. We really do. We live in the woods.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Council Member. Agenda item number 3 is per City Code Title 5-4-2, specific acts prohibited requires the City Council to approve any night work that would occur from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. Monday through Saturday. And again, this area is specific, if everybody's familiar with Wilkinson Drive, is directly adjacent to we call the East Side Industrial Park area. This is a pretty remote area in itself in that there are no residences that are located within, I want to say, close to a mile. The closest may be Clubhouse Drive. So we don't anticipate that there would be any residential concerns if there were night work. However, we do want to allow the contractor to have the flexibility to operate at night. Number one, we think it would minimize the impact to airport and aircraft operations, would increase that safety margin, plus allow them during the I want to say the hottest times of the year when we do have some high winds to be able to operate at night and possibly pave at night as well, so it would minimize the cure time. Is there any questions regarding the request for night work?
Just a side question, if I could, Mayor. Notice to proceed July 15th. Are we clear of our fire season? Because I imagine this is probably going to disrupt some of their operations, huh?
Very good question, Mayor Pro Tem. And again, this is coordination with the U.S. Forest Service and the local team, which we worked with certainly through the design phase and the construction phase for this. And this was what they have identified would be the most beneficial for them, which would certainly be clear of what we anticipate, knock on wood, is the peak of the forest season.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
forest fire season. So.
It's a great time to do it.
Yeah, and that was certainly the thought, knowing that the construction phase is 90 days for substantial completion in 120 days. We wanted to have it completed certainly by the winter period. So the end of July towards middle to late November, which is the 120-day season, would certainly fit in with the schedule for the Forest Service as well as the construction season.
It just seems like we're past monsoons right there, or excuse me, we're into monsoons, and I think the last airport construction project we did, we had a lot of problems with the rains that came down and were washing out their work, and it would seem like if they pushed it into fall, you'd still have the heat for the asphalt to go down, but you wouldn't have to worry about the rains and the delays. And I mean, that's not my thing to worry about, but things running through my head.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll take that into consideration. Thank you, sir.
Number 4.
And item number 4, Mayor, thank you. In addition, due to the increase in the anticipated construction costs, a grant amendment is anticipated from ADOT for 90%. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the actual ADOT grant award was for the total project cost to be at $1.6 million, which includes the design phase, construction phase, and construction administration. Once we did actually receive the contractor's bids, the anticipated total construction project cost is 1.649143. So we're about $49,000 over the anticipated 1.6 the total construction cost. And in conversation with ADOT again, they normally, their normal process is to wait until the final pay estimates are completed before they do an amendment to actually increase their costs. But they have told us and in writing that they were willing to participate their 90% share, or $45,000 of this $49,000 overage.
Anyone else? Comments from the public? Okay, thank you, Daniel. We need 4 different motions.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion for item number 1?
I'll go. Move to award city contract number 2015-182 to MRM Construction Services Incorporated in the amount of $1,337,440.54.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, item 2.
Move to approve authorization of services number 8 under city contract number 2014-029 with Dibble Engineering in an amount not to exceed $160,521.00.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Move to authorize the performance of night work on an as-needed basis for the project.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Number 4.
Move to authorize the mayor and city staff to execute any and all related documents to accept an increase in Arizona Department of Transportation 90% funding grant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.
Item G.
Item 3G, approval of purchase of one each Bobcat 3650 utility vehicle with the mower attachment from Bingham Equipment Company utilizing State of Arizona contract ADSP 013-00002042, pricing in a total amount of $26,457.96, Airport Fund.
Mayor, members of council, good afternoon. I'm John Cox from the airport.
Still here. Okay.
This one won't be quite as complicated. I appreciate your indulgence. This action item is actually to replace an existing, what I would consider a residential lawnmower that was utilized at the airport through the entire lifespan of 2.5 mowing seasons. What we're recommending, again, is more of a toolcat. What I have, again, Mayor, behind you on the board shows a toolcat that does have an attachment mower that we're recommending in this project, in this procurement. This toolcat is, again, for rugged terrain, which is certainly what we have in the 860 acres on the airport property that we mow regularly, and with this attachment, affords several other options, possibly at some future dates. The existing budget that was approved by the City Council in the amount of $25,000 was for another critical piece of equipment. However, due to the fact that the airport right now has one mower in existence for the 860 acres, we certainly need to have a backup mower to supplement that mower and to provide, I want to say, more of a turning radius, which is what this one can afford around our critical runway lights, our taxiway lights, our navigational aids, etc. The total cost of this project, of this purchase, is $26,457.96. It's actually the recommended procurement is through Bingham Equipment Company. They are the only authorized Bobcat dealer in the state of Arizona under the contract pricing, if you will, and I'd recommend purchase of this piece of equipment certainly during this season. Does anybody have any questions?
Council? No, sir. Public? Okay. Need a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve the purchase of one Bobcat 3650 utility vehicle with mower from Bingham Equipment Company using State of Arizona contract ADSP 013-000002042. Pricing in the total amount of $26,457.96.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes 6-0.
H, when we're ready.
Item 3H, award of city contract number 2015-181 to B&W Fire Security Systems for Airport F hangar fire suppression system replacement in an amount not to exceed $86,024.99.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good to see you. My name is John Cox. I'm the airport manager. This is, and I'd like to show the City Council again on the map behind you, sir. The F hangar is one of the what we consider the bottleneck hangars, and these are city-owned. They're publicly leased to the private aircraft owners. Where I have my hash mark right here is what we have, what we consider F hangar, if you will. It's occupied by 14 of our valued tenants out there that are aircraft owners. The original sprinkler system that was required as part of this installation, was installed in 1993, and in the past 20 years, there's been numerous leaks. I think, unfortunately, that unit of the 14 units that you see in the entire bottleneck area has certainly had the most critical failures of the fire sprinkler system, and because of that, there's been some costly repairs to this over the past 10-15 years. We've replaced many sections of pipe that are associated with the sprinkler system. Each time that we need to replace that pipe, it needs to be installed by a certified contractor, as well as inspected in compliance with the NFPA fire codes for the fire suppression and sprinkler system in that location. I do want to mention that there's numerous I want to say high-end aircraft that are stored in there, and every time that we do have a leak that occurs from there onto the privately owned aircraft, there's certainly a concern by the private owners there regarding the liability in their property. I do want to mention that because the system is pressurized, there's an air compressor, a component that goes along with this, that is stressed beyond its normal design capacity. What this project actually does is the project delivery is a design build, if you will, and the design build phase of this that was developed by staff was for the contractor to coordinate the design in conjunction with the local fire marshal and in conjunction with local building codes, and to have that permitted and approved before the construction phase, and for, again, the successful bidder to perform those construction services as well. The actual construction, the bid results, the project was publicly bid on March the 17th was the bid opening, and we did have 3 contractors that were interested in bidding. 2 of those were local. However, on April 16th, during the bid opening, 2 bids were received. B&W Fire Security Systems, here locally in Prescott, Arizona, bid $86,024.99, and they were the lowest recommended award for this project. Again, per the project schedule, we would like to provide them with the award of the contract per the City Council's approval, conduct a pre-construction meeting in subsequent weeks, issue a notice to proceed for the design and permitting phase towards the end of May, and hopefully have this constructed in late summer. We're certainly in coordination and communication with our 14 valued tenants in that, and they're providing us full support and cooperation to get this system back in line.
John, before Steve gets to you, is it still under warranty?
We just surpassed the 20-year warranty period, sir. I'm sorry.
But I do have a question. Go. If we have that kind of leak in one of those units, are they going to inspect the rest of those hangars to make sure that the city doesn't have liability to having problems in the rest of them?
And thank you. Very good question. We have had some discussion with the fire marshal regarding some fire suppression inspection. However, upon our operations inspection, which we conduct every month in those hangars, we haven't had any identifications of any leaks in any other hangars.
Okay. Well, you would know if you did. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you would know if you had problems in them, I'm quite sure.
Yes, sir.
Greg.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I'm not questioning the price. I've used B&W. They're a quality outfit, and the price is reasonable. My question is, during the, we've had discussion about the future of what the airport's going to look like. Do we see these buildings, these hangars staying there?
Yes, sir. Right now they're at 99% occupancy, so the demand is certainly high for private storage areas that the city owns the property and leases at. That represents about 75% of the revenue in the airport fund, the enterprise fund, and there's still a certain demand for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are we using these for strictly aircraft, or is there refrigerators and things in them as well?
Aircraft is the primary storage in each one of those hangars as a requirement right now. So the airport, again, through ADOT, the Aeronautics Division, is we provide them with a quarterly report of all of the aircraft that are based at the airport, and we do identify a home for each one of the aircraft in each one of those hangars.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So do these hangars have, are they thermostatically controlled heat or no?
They're on one metering system, and right now it's the honor system through each one of the existing tenants, but they do have several outlets that are inside of those individual units to plug in for various purposes, but no, there's no thermostatic control with those.
So this has to be like an antifreeze system or whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the fire suppression system itself and not just the hangar?
Well, the hangar, because if they were heated, then you wouldn't have to, the price would seem high, but if it had the outdoor, it seems like it's right on the numbers.
The heat strips? Yes, sir. Yeah. That is part of the design, is to be in accordance with the NFPA that would require that. And I believe they call that a pre-action system, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Comments from the public? Need a motion?
Mayor, I move to award city contract number 2015-181 to B&W Fire Security Systems for Airport F-Hangar Fire Suppression System Replacement in an amount not to exceed $86,000 $24.99.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Kuknew.
Thought I had it. Sorry.
Passes 6-0.
Item I, when you're ready.
Item 3I, request for special use permit SUP 14-001 for the installation of a cell tower at 1976 Commerce Center Circle, site zoning industrial transition, property owner Western Newspapers Incorporated, APN 105-18344.
Thank you, Mayor. The location of the subject property for this special use permit is within the Prescott Lakes Commerce Center, which is located east of Prescott Lakes Boulevard and east of the cottages, and north and adjacent to the Basis School property, which is located here. And the subject property is zoned industrial transition, which allows for communication facilities with an approved special use permit. And the site is of the compound and proposed tower is located in the southeast portion of the subject parcel. As you recall, the Planning and Zoning Commission held 2 meetings in August of last year, and after much discussion, ultimately made a recommendation of 4-1 to recommend approval of the special use permit. And Commissioner Chairman was the single no vote, and he stated at that time that the purpose and the rationale behind the no vote was that he didn't believe that Verizon had done an adequate job in assessing alternative locations for this proposed cell tower. And since that time, Reg Destry of Reliant Land Services has been doing analysis of alternative sites, and we provided a copy of a letter from Mr. Destry in the council packet, which describes the, for varying reasons, why the alternate sites can't fill the gap in cell phone coverage as a result of the topography out in this area. Mr. Destry's letter also states some proposed modifications to the original proposal that the Planning and Zoning Commission considered, including rotating the location of equipment within the compound, and specifically moving the monopole from the southeast portion of the compound to the northwest portion of the compound. And this would increase some of the setbacks from the east property line. It would increase it from approximately 20 to 30 feet, and increase the setback from the south property line from 22 feet to approximately 43.5 feet. Mr. Destry also states that Verizon's interested in reducing the overall height request from potentially 75 feet to a maximum height of 65 feet, and to reduce the antenna array, which his original proposal was at 12 feet, to 6 feet. And additionally, they're recommending, or they're proposing, to do additional landscaping out at the Prescott Lakes Boulevard right-of-way in the vicinity of the Basis School driveway. Now, the Land Development Code does provide and enable the council discretion in approving these types of special use permits, and including the reducing the setback distance, as well as the height of the overall tower. And in this particular instance, the property is zoned industrial transition. The maximum height within that district is 40 feet, and the setback required would be, the minimum would be the height of the tower. And as you know, there's been significant neighborhood opposition to this request, and we've included in the staff report and attached all of the correspondence that were received by staff back in the fall when this item was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as roughly 26 written letters and emails when we sent out the notice, area notice, that this item would be on your agenda today. And with that, Mayor, I think what I'd like to do, if okay with you, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant City Attorney Matthew Pedracki and have him take a few minutes and talk about the limitations of local government's decision-making in the placement of these telecommunication facilities as it relates to the Telecommunications Act. I think the council needs to be aware of this before you start the discussion and hear from the public and the concerns that we've heard throughout this process.
Thank you, Tom. Mayor, Council, the information that's on the Elmo or the overhead projector is contained in your council memo on page 5. It's a shortened version, but it's information I thought would be helpful to kind of start framing the discussion on how public hearings are done, the interplay between the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 and local government decision-making, also for the benefit of the public a little bit, to see what kind of information you can hear and give weight to and what kind of information the courts and the federal statute simply won't allow. So the first thing that the council needs to be cognizant of is, and this is fairly well settled at this point, either in the statute itself or through case law in the Ninth Circuit, that the city may not discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services. In other words, you can't favor AT&T over T-Mobile. The second one is that the city decision cannot prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. City's decision has to be based on objective criteria set out in the Land Development Code. And the pertinent section of the Land Development Code is 2.4.49. And the staff has done a good job laying that information out in the council communication of what our Land Development Code actually does require when somebody submits for a special use permit for a cell tower. The third thing we need to remain cognizant about is that the city must act on a cell tower application within a reasonable period of time after the request is filed. The fourth thing, which I have underlined, highlighted, put some bells and whistles up there if I could have, and this is mainly for the public's consumption, is that the city cannot regulate the placement, construction, or modification of telecom facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such emissions comply with FCC regulations. And the purpose of this requirement is to prevent telecommunication siting decisions from being based upon unscientific or what the courts call irrational fears that emissions from telecommunication sites may cause undesirable health effects. I say that now because I've sat through a lot of cell tower hearings, and this is something that always comes up, and I always try to preface kind of the debate and the discussion. So, you know, it's just something that it's like a given in geometry. All right angles are 90 degrees. The courts will not consider this. The council can't consider it. So if the mayor kind of shuts you down, if you wander into the ill effects of radio frequency emissions, it's not because he's being a mean guy. It's because he's getting legal advice from his attorney, and his attorney's basing that legal advice on the federal statutes and the case law interpreting it. The fifth thing, just kind of give you, the broad overhead kind of global picture on your duties, is that a city decision to deny, if it were inclined to deny an application, must be in writing and supported by substantial evidence contained in the written record. So if the council were to conclude that the application should be denied, it's important that when they make a motion, they articulate the reasons why they don't think the special use permit is acceptable. So those are kind of the five main areas of concern that we usually look to when we do public hearings on cell towers. This is what the federal courts will be looking at. If anything were challenged, this is what the statute says. So I just wanted to give you kind of the broad overhead, 100 feet above the air kind of viewpoint on this before you start taking testimony or hearing from the public or the applicant.
That's it? Ladies, gentlemen? Question? Comment? Tom?
You know, I have the utmost respect for the federal government. When is the last time, not that it comes into this conversation, but with not examining the environmental effects, when is the last time that these were looked at and said that they are safe? Not that it deals into this conversation. This is just an off-the-wall question.
Yeah, the only way I can answer that, I don't know when the last time they would have looked to it, but certainly in 1996, when they wrote the law, they made specific federal legislative findings of fact. And one of them was that they will not consider this because there was no valid science behind it. Now, whether or not they revisited that, I don't know.
Yeah, because it seems like technology's changed in 20 years, so they might want to look at that again. I know it's a big fear for people. I mean, I think we're going to have problems just putting these phones to our heads after a while. I think that's going to affect us more than a tower would. But to just block you out like that doesn't even want you to consider it.
Tom, you have someone here from Verizon?
Yes, Mayor, Council, Reg Destry is here today.
Okay. Before we go there, I think you made it very plain. We've had a lot of communications on this, and some of the communications has been that the effect number 4 with that argument, and I think this makes it pretty plain that that will not be something that the council will be able to consider, because apparently it's set in concrete. So when we go to the public, we'll try to steer clear of that. Okay, good. Yes, sir. Join us.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Reg Destry. I'm with Reliant Land Services and representing Verizon Wireless. Thank you for considering this permit request today. We have had a long process and have been looking to get a site in this area. This area originally, in about 2007, this ring was issued. What I've got on the overhead here is just kind of the beginning of some history I'd like to share on this site. The area that's shown here actually is near what is now Willow Lakes Road and Prescott Lakes Parkway. The left half is the area that is the cottages. The right half is essentially the Commerce Center. That is the area which was originally targeted to try and place a site. The goal at almost all times is to place a site in the middle of an area that needs coverage, and also to take into consideration terrain, which is a serious issue in this area. I mean, there are quite a few hills that cause some issue with topography. So I focused the search on that area and focused it on any commercial or similar to commercial IT zones. Here's an actual aerial showing that the same center, and as you can see, the Commerce Center is generally located just to the east of the area, but that is almost dead center on the ring, and that was intentional. The reason for that is the surrounding sites, due to the topography, do not cover into that area. So what you see here, Willow Lakes, Prescott North, Prescott Highway, these are existing cell sites that Verizon has in the area. The Willow Lakes pole is a monopole, a steel shaft monopole that's located along Commerce Drive. That site actually covers everything. Shown in yellow is where that is strongest. The Prescott North site is actually located on a city water facility on a large tower and is leased from the city. That site is up on a mountaintop, which is great to provide coverage in a very large area. The problem is when the topography comes in, especially in this area, you start dropping down the hill and it can't go down the hill. It's not exactly line of sight, but it's rather close. So the Willow Lake site will kind of take over. And then the third site that serves part of this area is Prescott Highway. It's another monopole. It's brown. It's on the east side of Highway 89, located at the wastewater treatment facility. Again, that is leased from the city, and it's an old Alltel site that when Verizon acquired Alltel, it was integrated into the network. Those three sites, because of their location, do a decent job of covering, but the problem is this area right in the middle. There's an area here that is light. There's no color that serves it in amongst that yellow. What that means is that there is not good coverage, especially in building. And so, Verizon customers, this wouldn't impact other folks, but Verizon customers do not have good coverage in that area. Outside, they may be able to make a phone call. Many of them inside will not, especially people, and this is weird, anyone on the east side of their house probably has less coverage than on the west side of their house, just because of the proximity proximity to that Willow Lake site that primarily serves that area. So to try and fill in this hole, we were issued that search ring I showed you before. And it is, again, right in the middle of that location. So when I was issued the ring, the search area, I really started taking a look. I give preference to any existing sites in the area. There is one existing site in the area. It is an AT&T co-location on an APS power pole. Sites like that are not available for Verizon to also co-locate on, so they cannot use a second carrier on that pole. However, we did look at possibly doing another site at the Twin Lakes Market on a different APS pole. We ran into an issue there of a lack of ground space. A lot of their parking lot is actually owned by ADOT as part of the interchange and roundabout there for 89. So there's not space there for us to put ground equipment next to a pole. We also looked in the primary search area, which was over here in the Commerce Center. So what you see noted as AZ2 Smoke Tree is the candidate that's in front of you today. Other options that were considered, primarily the other site was on commercial association land near the Sir Speedy. I don't know how familiar you all are with the Commerce Center, but that was the other location in the Commerce Center that was considered. The reason for those locations, and particularly for the one in front of you today, we were attempting to maintain as much of a setback from nearby residential as possible. So with the location that is being proposed at the southeast corner of the Western Newspapers parcel, that maintains the best overall separation from all surrounding residential property by maintaining about 500 feet to the west, about 500 feet to the east, and then there's also some residential here. If we did move up to a location up here, you end up being closer to residential. Now this is in the county, but you're much closer to this residential in this area, which is actually within the city's limits. So we tried to find a spot that would be the most appropriate, furthest away from homes and within an IT and near a business district. So candidates were submitted to the engineer, and he determined that that location, the one we have in front of you today, is the most appropriate location to fill in the coverage gap. Now, through the P&Z process, questions were raised about, why here? So that's why I wanted to go over a few of the things. Those were really the initial sites considered, and after the why here came up again from both the neighbors and from the Planning and Zoning Commission, we looked into some additional options, and some of those are shown on here as well. We considered the basis property, so the school is right here. However, they own the majority of the property back to the highway, and this goes over a hill here. So we spoke with them about possibly leasing space from them to place a site up on the hill. Due to the topography, it would have been a decent location, just because that higher elevation would allow it to have a decent view back toward the southwest, which is the primary area we're trying to cover. However, they were not interested in doing a lease for a site. They're in the business of running a school, so they just said that no, thanks. The other options we looked at were actually city property at Watson Lake Park. There was some discussion that occurred, and the area that is here was deemed not a good spot. Frankly, it's not even that good for engineering for Verizon, because this hill reaches out here, and this site would end up getting some blockage back to the southwest. But the primary reason that wasn't used is because it didn't fit in well with the plans for the park. And you also run into an issue where you're starting to get right into the Dells there. So folks that are on 89 are dealing with looking at views of the Dells, and then the site is there. After that P&Z, further consideration was given to some more options. We looked at some additional APS poles located along Willow Lakes Road. Now there is one nice big pole right here on the north side of the road. I called APS, and we actually do sites with APS all the time and locate on their poles. However, that particular pole, which had a good amount of ground space in the right-of-way, was not available. It's overbuilt, it's underbuilt, and it's got 2 drop downs. So utilizing that particular pole couldn't be done. So we then looked further to the northeast, the next pole up, also on the north side of the right-of-way, which that pole was available to replace. The issue there is that there is a complete and utter lack of space in the right-of-way. The right-of-way really pinches off quite considerably as you head toward the northeast. And so any utilities that are there, are going to be in the way of what we're proposing. And there's water, electric, and several other utilities running through that right-of-way, which the portion north of the roadway is actually rather small. So we went about looking at these other options and, you know, kind of considered all that after meeting with staff, let them know, and that's when we produced this letter that you have in your packet indicating that work. And there's more in-depth information in there regarding the other options that were considered. But that really brought us back to the proposed location that you have in front of you today. We are looking for approval in the southeast corner. The desire here, again, is to stay as far away from any surrounding neighbors as possible. There will obviously be folks from the cottages here. They've expressed their concern. You know, we're trying to do some things to mitigate. Originally, we were proposing a site that was a 75-foot tall monopole. I was able to talk to the RF engineer. He was able to come down 10 feet. Can't come down further than that. You know, he can't come down, say, 25 more feet, or the site's not going to cover anything. So we wouldn't even be here for a special use permit if 40 feet would work. We would have just gone administratively and requested that from staff. We came here, we requested this approval because we need the site. We need this site in this location to cover a gap, and this is the most appropriate location in the Commerce Center for a site. There is not currently anything built on this property. We are proposing to stay as far to the southeast as possible, to stay away from the homes to the west, and keep the most separation from everything surrounding. Now, originally the proposal, again, was for 75-foot monopole, and the pole itself was going to be about 21 feet away from the east property line and the south property line. What we did after we got some feedback was we basically proposed to shift the actual compound, and I believe Tom kind of showed that to you, but what that leaves us with is a site that it's about 500 feet from here over to the neighbors to the west, because they are on the other side of Prescott Lakes Parkway. The neighbors here in Granite Basin Engineering had expressed concern about the distance to their building, because 21 feet off the property line, and then their building is about 15 feet away from that property line. So before, it was at about 36 feet total to get over to their property. By reconfiguring this, we were able to get that property line set back to 29 feet, and then adding in the 15, you end up at closer to 44, 45 feet. We can't really push any further out. We can't meet a 1-to-1 65-foot setback for the pole, because it ends up putting it out well into the buildable area of this property, and it definitely decreases the value of that property to be built out in the future. There is currently, the newspaper owns a parcel to the north and currently has a building there, and this likely would be future expansion. I know it was used for construction staging for the school, but you know, it will have a permanent building at some point, and the goals of trying to stay as far to the east away from the neighbors as possible and out of that build area are definitely hand in hand. So we've talked about decreasing the height of the tower. We've talked about moving it away from the property line. In addition to moving it away from the property line to meet the larger setbacks, we can and have offered all along to provide an engineer's letter signed and stamped by a registered engineer in the state of Arizona, indicating that in case of complete tower failure, it would remain on this property. So in this case, that would basically be, it'd be 30 feet to the east and 43 feet to the south. But it would just be designed to stay within 30 feet. In additional attempts to mitigate the visual impacts from this location, we've proposed to bring in the antenna array. So that would be the width of the actual antennas that are out there. And originally, our standard site has this as a 12-foot wide arm. So we're proposing to reduce that to 6 feet wide. Now that does reduce the number of antennas from 4 to 3, but due to the type of site this is, the engineer said yes, he could go with the smaller array, and that actually decreases the width of the top of the tower substantially. I mean, it's well over half the width of what would normally be proposed. There is the possibility as well, if the council approves it and desires to have a pine tree, that pine tree would be 10 feet taller. The antennas would be concealed within that pine tree, and it would end up being pretty similar. It would just be 10 feet taller, and I think it would probably be more noticeable to have a pine tree there, just because there is not anything in the way of large pine trees. You know, if we go down to the south side of town up in the mountains, there are plenty of pine trees, but there really aren't a lot in this area. But if that's something that is the reason the council would be willing to approve this site, we certainly can do that. The only issues we saw with the separate recommendations for possible approval would be that we can't do a 40-foot site. It's not going to cover anything. It doesn't fill in the hole on that map. And we can't do 65 feet, so that's why we've come up with this revised design to increase that distance. I mean, like I said, you're basically 45 feet from the building to the east, and the school to the south is actually about 75 feet off the property line. So it's about 110, 115 feet to that building. So, you know, we've looked at all the spots. We've tried to find them. You know, we've looked at the locations I talked about. We looked at some further stuff north on Highway 89 that's noted in that letter. East of the highway, a couple of old gas stations, the Point of Rocks. Those sites are worse. They're not good locations for varying reasons, from lack of landlord interest to the Yavapai County ordinance specifically forbidding being in or near the dells, and the parcels being smaller, which would result in even smaller setbacks to property lines. So we request approval of this site. We feel it's a good location, or at least the best location to fill the coverage gap, and we feel that these mitigating measures we've taken will help appropriately decrease the impact on the neighborhood.
Jane?
Well, I actually had a question for Tom Geis from earlier. Tom, in this zone, industrial transitional, there's a 40-foot height limitation. Can you explain why that 40-foot limit exists? How did it come about?
Well, I think if you looked at the really the applicability, the purpose portion of the Land Development Code, it's really a transition zone as you go from residential into commercial and industrial, in the industrial transition zone. So it's really intended to have a kind of uses that are compatible with a nearby residential and similar height limitations. In the residential district across the street, the height limitation is 35 feet. And as you go from the industrial transition into the more intense industrial districts, the height limitation increases to 50 feet.
So it's for compatibility?
That's correct.
Okay.
Did
I have a question for Mr. Destry. You said that you could provide an engineer's letter stating that the tower can be designed to fall within the property line?
That's correct, Councilwoman Wilcox. It's actually something that's fairly common anytime we're within a one-to-one setback. The engineer that designs the structure and the foundation will then provide a separate letter stamped that would be submitted with a building permit application indicating that, yes, they've designed this and their insurance and their stamp are behind it.
What if there's a fire and the tower does fall within the property line, but we all know fire spreads and under certain conditions can spread very rapidly?
Well, and in that case, Verizon does in fact have insurance as well. I mean, anything could happen. I mean, I know that the question came up of a possible fire. Someone did show a picture at one of the P&Z hearings about a site that had started on fire, but I've heard of a lot more homes that have started on fires than I've heard about cell sites that have started on fires. I've heard about a lot more businesses that start on fire than cell sites that start on fire. And there's a building much closer on just the other side of Granite Basin Engineering that could very easily start on fire. One of the cars in the parking lot could start on fire. And there are a lot of different things that could happen, and that's precisely why we have insurance.
Well, insurance can restore and rebuild property, but it can never bring back a human life. And there are lots of children in the school very close by, within fire range. Even if the tower doesn't fall on the school, there's still a danger that the tower could be struck by lightning, fall over, and cause a serious fire.
I mean, there's a danger that lightning could strike the school as well. I mean, so.
Just for the moment. Greg?
Kind of afraid to ask a question because I'm not sure what we're allowed to ask.
You're allowed to ask whatever you want. It's a wonderful thing called legislative immunity. So anything you say on the day, so you're covered. Once you get off it,
Thank you.
be careful.
One question for you, sir. Did you check with Hughes Plumbing Supply? Were they amicable to allowing you to use their property?
I did look at that location. I did not speak with the owners. The reason was the location that would work there would have been toward the southeast portion of the property, and that runs back into the issue with the hills. So here you've got Hughes. The best option for their property is this southeast portion, and as you can see, I mean, it's sort of difficult to see, but this is the ridge line. The site would actually serve very well down toward Watson Lake, but we don't need coverage there. It would really do well up 89 through the Dells, but getting back into this area, especially up through here, it catches a lot of blockage from that hill. That's why I'd mentioned earlier the Basis School was a decent option, because it's on that hill.
Sure.
Being down at Hughes puts us in behind the hill. So the stuff we had looked at over in this area was actually north a bit of the roundabout, so that the Point of Rocks is right about there. And again, that has a much higher elevation and doesn't have this hill to deal with.
Sure. Also, you know, I'm not one where government should get involved with how you should spend your money, but since you're asking for a conditional use or a variance of our codes and zoning, have you thought about multiple smaller sites?
And frankly, for an area like this, the hole wouldn't really be served very well to be filled by smaller sites. If there are some diverse pockets, that small cell solution can often work quite well. The problem is needing to try and shoot up into this valley here. Having a site, a macro site shooting in there is a much more effective method than trying to do it with several 20, 30 foot sites that, you know, would probably be spread out throughout the area.
Okay, thank you. My last question, I guess, is for council or Tom or whoever feels that this is appropriate for them. I guess what we're doing here is we're voting on allowing the variance of height. Is that what it comes down to?
Tom answer that, but you know, the process is called a special use permit. Tom will kind of get into the nitty-gritty of what that requires. A little different than a variance or a conditional use permit.
That's correct, and Mayor, Councilman Lozelle, the telecommunication facility use requires a special use permit unless it's owned and operated by a governmental entity. So the location, the use at this location requires a special use permit. Within the special use permit process, the council can deviate from the underlying zoning standards to permit greater height, reduce setback. And a point to the question that Councilman Wilcox asked, while height of the zone district is related to compatibility of adjacent uses, the setback is definitely a health and safety consideration. And in fact, in Article 2.4.49, I believe it's J or L of the Land Development Code, specific performance criteria, one of the criteria that's considered is whether the height of the proposed cell tower is within the standards outlined or identified with the underlying zoning district. So in that respect, not only will the height, but also the reduced setback, the council will need to specifically approve that should you want to approve this specific special use at this location. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Thank you.
Steve?
Stay there, Tom. Have we ever located, or maybe even Verizon can answer the question, have we ever located a tower communication on top of a light pole, say for instance a traffic control pole?
I don't know that there are any of those within Prescott. Down in the valley, there are sites like that. Those would tend to be more towards what Councilman Lozelle was saying earlier about the smaller cell sites to try and fill in a smaller gap because of the height that they offer. I mean, the existing verticality in this area would be those APS poles that are there, which are much higher than a traffic light. And then, I mean, there's the large WAPA towers that run through the Prescott Lake subdivision, but those were not available. So as far as a traffic light, I mean, I don't know of any in Prescott, but that is definitely something that we do in other jurisdictions, but fill smaller holes. Do it almost like a small cell.
Could you go back up to Willow Lake Road, your map, your Google Earth map?
Sure.
And the question that I would have is,
is this the one you were referring to, Councilman Blair?
no, beyond down further past Prescott Lakes Parkway. The question I'd have is on the northwest side of Willow Lake Road, you have an already existing pump structure that's on City of Prescott property in the county.
Yes. That location actually does not have a lot of space at it. The parcel is rather small, and then the area around it is all flood or drainage areas. Additionally, there's an issue with getting the shot back in here. It can cover the eastern part, but if you start shooting towards the west, there's a bit of blockage, and the height there of 65 feet, anyone driving along Willow Lake Road, they would definitely see that site when they were looking at the Dells or at the lake.
Well, the only reason why I brought it up is it's already compromised. Mm-hmm. So when you look at a compromised site already, you automatically say that, well, rather than compromise some other site, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. To put a 65-foot pole up there, I can't see how it would be obstructed by anything of the area you're trying to reach, but I'm not an engineer either. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I brought up the light standard mm-hmm. is the fact at some point in time in the near future, there will be a light at Prescott Lakes Parkway and Willow Lake Road, okay, which would service that need that you're talking about. So just as a thought, those are two items that I would bring to your attention.
Okay, thank you. And generally, those light poles end up getting to about a 40-foot elevation, so that would kind of get right back to the same problem of height, bless you, that we have at with a possibility of only having a 40-foot site approved at this location.
Okay.
Chris?
I got kind of excited when you started to talk about the behind Twin Lakes, because that's already pretty messed up back in there. They got a lot of high power lines. They already got a cell array over there. If you put one there, it would also help with the Dells coverage. I think, I don't know if you're from here or not, but it's typical you say, I'm going in the Dells, I'll call you back in a minute.
I am not from here, Councilman, or Mayor Pro Tem, but yes, I am aware of that problem myself.
And that's all the time. And to your point, I drop calls on this road all the time, and if you need help with the ADOT right-of-way, we might be able to work with that.
Well, and let me interrupt for a moment. I believe that's, unless ADOT retained that, I believe that I was going to bring this point up when I heard Mr. Vestry say that they had not really considered it, or there looked to be an impasse there because it's ADOT. I believe that's city. You recall that the city swapped basically maintenance responsibility and got some work. And so that is city right-of-way all the way from the Yavapai Prescott Indian Tribe right-of-way up to 89A.
So it looks like we might be able to work with you. I mean, AT&T just gave us $20,000 a year to put one on the parking garage. We'd love to charge you $20,000 and put it right there in our roundabout.
We in fact have several sites, and yeah, I did talk to what's John's name? Tom Hirsch, I've got it written down, regarding the Don Hirsch, yeah, regarding space on the ground within the Willow Lake Road right-of-way, because yeah, I did know that was actually the city's right-of-way that was just acquired. That originally when we started this, that Willow Lake Road portion was county right-of-way, the north part, but once it was acquired, once we were told, hey, go look again, that's why we looked. I mean, there are a lot.
So it looks like that might still be a possibility then.
Well, what I'm saying is that it was not. That's why APS had an issue with the pole that had a good amount of ground space by it. Right at the curve right at the curve, there's a nice wide right-of-way there. We could put our ground equipment in. That pole cannot be replaced. APS will not allow it. And we do APS sites all the time, but that one they cannot replace. The site that they said they could do was back at the other entrance to this undeveloped property. And the problem there is the right-of-way gets down to only about 8 feet behind the curb. And there's a ton of stuff buried in there.
And just, we got that land development code in there, try and keep the place looking good. And I got to ask the hard question. The neighbors overwhelmingly don't want you there. How do you feel?
I mean, I certainly understand that there are some folks whose views will be impacted. If there were a building built here already on this property, which there will be someday, I think it would be a lot less of an issue. If people were looking at a 20 or even a 40-foot building on this property, our pole would barely be noticeable. And to try and mitigate that, we've come up with decreasing the size of the overall height, decreasing the width, trying to propose. We had proposed 3 pine trees along the road along Prescott Lakes Parkway. Staff had asked for 4. We can certainly do that. But moving this site anywhere, there's not a location that's going to be further from residences. It's unfair to say that, well, don't go in my backyard, go around the corner so you're in that guy's backyard. It's not reasonable to say, well, you should be 100 feet from that guy, not 500 feet from me.
But along the highway, that guy's backyard is already compromised.
Oh, are you talking about over here still?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, we looked at, like I said, one of the original candidates was the pole, just the APS pole on the Twin Lakes Market, just south of the AT&T pole that's already there. And the reason that one did not work, APS said yes, we could swap that out. And we have a master lease agreement with them. There was just not ground space for it because the parking number is horrific at that place. I mean, it's half dirt, and most of the asphalt stuff there is actually owned by ADOT. So it's not part of their ownership.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else, Council? Just to follow up on a comment that, and I may have heard it wrong, something was mentioned about the county site, but there's no way in the world that the county would entertain a...
At the Dells? In the Dells.
Yeah, the county ordinance specifically forbids wireless sites within several areas, and the Dells are one of them.
Well, how can the county have an ordinance that strict, and we can't?
Good point.
That would be a question for your attorney, I would think, Mr. Mayor.
I don't know if you can't. I just don't think we have one.
Well, could we have one?
I would look to see what the county's done, but it's a possibility. It'll probably come into some sort of view shed ordinance or protecting of hilltops and things like that. We have things like that we've done in the past. Now, I would have to check it against the Federal Telecommunications Act and see if there's a potential problem with that. But, given the uniqueness of the Dells, you may be able to do it.
Well, people living in Prescott Lakes would also argue that they have a uniqueness that's important to them. And I think that has been, we've saw it for a couple of weeks in the correspondence that we've had from the folks that live there that own property. And, property rights are still alive. Now, how far, we don't know.
Let me ask Tom whether we do have any locations, and I know we have a plan on our preference for cell sightings. Do we prohibit cell towers in any particular areas because of geographic uniqueness?
No prohibition for specific areas, but there's sites that aren't, again, governmentally owned and controlled would require a special use permit. And I know that this wireless plan that the city adopted, and I want to say it was in, don't know specifically the year, but I think it was in the early 90s, was kind of on the heels of the Granite Dells community plan, which was a very extensive effort involving the residents out there that the county took the lead in, that the city participated in. So I'm not familiar with the county's ordinance prohibiting wireless or cell towers in the Dells. And it may be that there's something in their community plan. I don't know. We can certainly check that out.
Is it against the APS's rules to locate one of those towers on their high tension poles? You got high tension poles that are running through Prescott Lakes right now.
Those are actually owned by WAPA, Mr. Councilman.
So do they not allow that?
WAPA does allow sites. There are a couple. Verizon actually has one that is in Diamond Valley, which has been inactive for 7 years because Verizon's been unable to get WAPA to allow them to change out the antennas. So the problem is, if we try to go on that site, we've had absolutely no luck, even though we have a master agreement with WAPA, and the ground space would end up being on a golf course or next to a home on any of those structures.
It's not unusual in Phoenix now to see locations on the big towers.
Yeah, no, SRP, APS do them all the time. It's basically the ownership by WAPA that creates the issue there.
What is WAPA?
I'm sorry, the Department of Energy, Western Area Power Administration.
Okay, thank you.
I forget about the alphabet soup sometime.
Okay, let's go to the, let's start with, is there support for this site? Let's start there. So come on up.
I just sit here and talk?
Oh, come on to the podium, yeah.
Okay. So this property, my family business owns it, and we do plan to expand onto the property. What is it, Reg, 1976? Right, Commerce Center. We're currently located at 1958 Commerce Center, and we have horrible cell service there. It's hard to conduct business from our cell phones. I have most of my staff works from cell phones. Excuse me, reporters all have cell phones, ad reps all have cell phones. They all do business from cell phones. Their devices, we do use Verizon. We've used Sprint in the past, so that didn't work well either for us at all at that same location. And now, yeah, Verizon seems to work like a tad bit better, but obviously when Reg came to me a couple of years ago to propose this site on my property next door to the current courier office, I was, more than thrilled, because we need cell service really bad to function as a business, as well as the expansion onto the property next door. I don't know when that will happen. That's definitely future expansion down the road. My plan, of course, is to keep the company, Prescott Newspapers, growing. We need cell service to function as businesses. We're in the 21st century. I know you talked about property rights for the residents, but what about property rights for me, and my commercial property that I own next door to the courier office, Okay. So.
Can you just state your name for the record?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Kelly Saltweddle Thornhill.
Thank you.
Is that all you need to know? Okay, thank you.
We thought everybody knew Kelly. Yeah. Okay.
Let me come over here so I can put this on the TV viewer. I'm Tom Coe. I live on Constable Street at the near Prescott Lakes Parkway, just off of I forget the name of the road. What's the Smoke Tree Lane? Yes, which has lousy cell service. Apparently, I live just over 1,000 feet from the proposed tower. Now, right out our front windows, we see the Dells and the 75-foot stealth tree being proposed, which I much favor, would be right in our view of the Dells, and that's fine because we need cell service. But apparently, as Tom Geis, he was kind enough to let me know of when this was, a few weeks ago, when this might be on the agenda for today. But I first found out when around the neighborhood this was being distributed. First off, I got confused because my calendar says May 4th is a Monday, not a Wednesday, when the last date to put in the letter to go in the packet. And I'm not good at writing letters when I don't know exactly what's being proposed, so I was waiting for the packet to go on the website, which it did about 5 o'clock last Thursday, which was too late to submit a letter. And sure enough, this thing that was mailed says the only thing under proposal is the 75-foot stealth tree, nothing else. But the main concern is, I see on the letter, you've got all these complaints against, for people, well, what you said, 300 feet is the minimum distance or the required requirement for giving notification. It was expanded to 1,000 feet, which included a lot of people who currently have good cell service, don't have problem with their mobile phones. But those of us who live outside 1,000 feet, many of us do not. And we have people stopping beside of the road, sometimes on Smoke Tree Lane, when their mobile service or their geographic map doesn't work. One day a couple months ago, I had a lady, she looked very scared, stopped trying to use her phone, and somebody was behind her, some guy. We found out later it was her friend. She was trying out a used car from the dealer up by Highway 69, and it was kept breaking down, and she was afraid to try to drive it back up the hill. And he was trying all over to get a connection long enough to explain to the dealer why they couldn't drive the car back. And when I finally told him this is a bad cell phone area, he went way up Constable Street, I don't know how many blocks up higher, finally got a connection where he could tell him the problem. And I don't think, this isn't like a rural area. I mean, this is an area where we're not talking about a little dropout once in a while. We're talking about total loss of service sometimes. So one way or another, we need mobile phone service there. And one of the things that has been complained about is said, well, you few people that don't really matter to the city of Prescott, just get an extender for your house. Well, somebody up the street about 3 blocks from me, apparently Verizon gave him one. I talked to him a few months ago. But yeah, on his cell phone, yeah, he sees a real strong signal. But the extender can't pick up the signal from the cell tower any better than his phone could beforehand. He still got dropped calls that didn't do any good. So I don't want to hear the excuse of extender anymore. Just get an extender. We need cell service by one means or another in that area. I mean, this is getting close to the base of school where kids are traveling to school and parents are bringing their kids to school and so forth. So I think we need to consider one way or another getting good cell service in this area.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Don Kuchar. I live on Constable Street, and I bought a house in Prescott Lakes in 2012. I didn't have cell phone. I changed my cell phone vendor. That didn't work. I've changed my phone, so that doesn't work. There's no service in our area. It is a safety issue. It's not any other concern. People use now alarm systems. They don't use wired because wired systems can go down, so alarm systems now, today's technology says you call the monitoring center on a cell phone. You have an accident on a road, you want to call 911. You don't have cell phone service. We are denied cell phone service for the aesthetic value of I don't want a tower in my neighborhood. Well, folks, if everybody lived like that, we wouldn't have any cell phone service in the whole United States. You have to live with progress. Things change, and when safety is an issue, we have to look at safety first, not aesthetics. Safety first, not aesthetics. Any questions to me? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I have a question.
Come on.
Would you like to finish with all with the supporters, or can I address Mr. Kuchar?
You can come down next.
Hi, my name is Max Phipps. I live on Constable Street, and I am a Verizon customer. I did send a letter of support regarding this. It didn't make it to the agenda packet, but I hope it was all distributed to you individually. But I just want to speak on behalf of my wife and myself. We have 0 cell phone coverage inside of our residence. Rain, sleet, or snow, I have to go outside to make a call. I can't receive a call, or every now and then the phone will ring, but the first thing I say is, hang on, I need to go outside and talk. I agree that it is a potential safety issue. More and more people are getting away from landlines or cutting them off. They're relying on their cell phones, and my concern is that at some point, like he was referring to, someone had to pull over on the side of the road. You're not going to be able to get through because there is poor coverage there. And I just want the council to understand that I'm fully in support of this cell tower going in. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Tom, there's got to be CC&Rs on this piece of property too, isn't there?
Yes, there are, and as you know, the city doesn't enforce CC&Rs, but in fact, I believe there was a letter with the CC&Rs that were attached that made the CC&Rs. I don't know if they made it to the council, but and actually, I believe that's Granite Basin Engineering, the building that would be closest to this location.
Were the CC&Rs on both, were they different from the residential and the commercial?
Yes,
do we
it's
know
typically
that?
done by subdivision. So I haven't seen the CC&Rs for the cottages, but standing here, I think it's a fairly high assurance that, yeah, the CC&Rs would be different for the cottages versus the Prescott Commerce Center.
Okay, do we know what the CC&Rs are on this property?
We have copies of those, Mayor, but the extent of the city requiring CC&Rs within the Land Development Code is to ensure that there's a property or an owner's association to maintain any common area, and anything outside of that is really not an enforcement issue or an issue that the staff
I understand the city does not enforce CC&Rs. That would be within the homeowners or whatever type of organization it would be.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, yes, there are CC&Rs on this Commerce Park. There's actually a commercial association. We've been working with the commercial association since the get-go. In fact, they were one of our candidates, and we've been in front of their board twice now. In fact, I just talked to Dawn Stoner, who works at Homeco and handles that association a couple days ago, and she did remind me about the location that they had on the north part of the development. But yeah, we've got some of our design elements actually that incorporated some comments they had. In fact, the block wall being half block, half wrought iron was something that was a design element that they had requested to be in line with their overall plan. So that there has been consideration, and we've gone in front of them a few times, and that is separate from the residential HOAs that exist in Prescott Lakes.
Okay, and those CC&Rs have no problem with the height?
No.
Okay. Okay. The lady that wanted to come on down.
You know, I will wait because I have a number of points to make, valid points that you can consider.
Okay.
But I will. Are we done with the supporters?
Your conversation will be against?
Absolutely.
Okay. Someone else in favor of it? Okay. Let's move to the next level then. Those that might be opposed. I will say this, that the council has received lots of communication, and I have checked some of mine, and all of them have not been within the Prescott Lakes area. It seems like there was a week or so of almost chain mail that we received, and some of that opposition was not people within the Prescott Lakes area, and I think we all received some of that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. Good afternoon, or almost good evening. My name is Dana McCready. I own a home in the cottages, and I am opposed to this application. Incidentally, I am a longtime Verizon customer, and I'm happy to report that I'm extremely satisfied with my Verizon service. You've talked today about significant neighborhood opposition. Absolutely, since last August and the first P&Z Commission meeting. You've mentioned the opposition contained within your agenda packet. Yes, about 72 pages of opposition within your agenda packet. Where is it coming from? Yes, it's coming from Prescott Lakes residents, cottages residents, but also business owners across the street, adjacent to the site. How about BASIS, the parents of BASIS students, residents of the Legacy Apartments? There are many of whom are opposed. And I should also note that many BASIS parents are still unaware of this application. Much opposition to be considered, a situation very much unlike the other two Verizon applications you considered last December, where absolutely no opposition was voiced. I'm pleased to see today in the city staff recommendations that you are now requiring setbacks equivalent to the tower height, which is all part of our land development code. This was not the case before. However, at the end of the day, the proposed site remains controversial due to questionable need that benefits so few. Yes, aesthetics. We've talked today about how valuable the views of the Dells are, but yes, those of us in Prescott Lakes also value our views. What about the impact on all surrounding property values, residential and business? What about the questionable compliance with CC&Rs? I'm hoping that somebody from the Commerce Center is here today, but their CC&Rs talk about danger to the health or safety of occupants, creating unsightly conditions, etc. What about the adjacency to businesses, to a school occupied by 600 students with the addition of K through 4? What about homes, apartments, medium and high density multifamily zoning? This isn't a remote site off Highway 89. What about concern about tower failures, fires? And lastly, what about concern for public health and safety? For all these reasons, this particular location is not suitable, and I respectfully request that you deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Bruce Wymore, and I'm a property owner in the estates on Winfield Circle. But more importantly, I'm a parent of a child at the Basis School. Now, notwithstanding what the city attorney has told you today about the Telecommunications Act of 1996, and he has correctly identified there as being no recent re-examination, though they have been asked to do so by the EPA and others, of the regulations and specifications within that act. The city attorney, what he has said, still the act does not forbid you to take into account the welfare, health, and safety of the people of the city. So I would just leave you with that note on that. I think perhaps also in respect to what the FCC will tell us, the salt and pepper in my mustache may tell you that I have been around long enough to remember when the federal government used to tell the public that asbestos was quite all right. Ditto for secondhand cigarette smoke. But the harm to this community from the proposed siting of the cell tower off Prescott Lakes Parkway is not limited to matters of health and safety. One does not need to consult one's conscience to consider this, but rather simple common sense to realize the negative impact upon property values in the residential area resulting from the nearby erection of a cell tower. You have received testimony from long-standing local realtors in this area about this. Do any of you live next to a cell tower? I don't, and we probably share the same reasons for not doing so. But cell tower promoters will still deny this, and so deny not only the evidence, but the common sense behind it. In this proposal, Verizon has claimed that there are gaps in their coverage of this area. In the course of my search for property last year, I went all over Prescott Lakes and made and received cell phone calls on both my Verizon network and AT&T network cell phones with no problem and no dropped calls. I think that there probably are a few folks who have complained and do experience weak signals within their residences. Verizon offers on its own website a device to help them with this problem, and there are other alternative solutions. The residents of Prescott would be far better served if the city were to join hands with the cell companies in helping people avail themselves of the simple solutions which are already out there for these problems without resorting to erecting more harmful cell towers. There can be no doubt of the harmful effects of these cell towers, but certainly as they are positioned or sited in near proximity to residential, certainly schools. But there may be, to be fair, some benefits for those folks who are lacking signal within their homes. After all, if you greatly increase the radiation being emitted and spread out over an area of Prescott, those within their homes most likely will get some extra signal. The city staff in their memo did not, however, consider the question of just how many such people there might be helped in relation to the number of people, virtually everyone, who will be hurt by this cell tower. For all these considerations and the others which I've written to you about, I would ask that you deny this proposal in any of its variations. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Tom, a quick question while she's coming down. If this facility was built as requested, what would, and there was future development, commercial development on that lot, what would setbacks do from this facility to another building?
Well, Mayor, I think the best way to answer that question is setbacks is determined to the property line, not to adjacent structures.
Okay. So interior, would be no problem. Okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Sharon Dale. I am a real estate agent and have been in real estate for 24 years, both in Prescott, Scottsdale, and Phoenix. And I can tell you from my experience that working with over 1,000 buyers, not one time have I had a buyer that is willing to live anywhere close to a cell tower or power lines. It just hasn't happened.
If I may,
go ahead.
And I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. Prescott Lakes has got one of the largest power lines running right through it.
Right, it does.
But they sold all those houses. I'm just saying that.
They did. I've not had one buyer willing to live close to them, though, and I've sold many houses in Prescott Lakes. I'm a resident of Prescott Lakes. I live in the estates at Prescott Lakes, have been there for 14 years, have sold many houses in Prescott Lakes, not been able to sell any close to power lines or cell towers. The other concern I have, I'm a grandmother of 9 grandchildren, and I am adamantly opposed to this being so close to the basis school. Thank you.
This brings a point. Just today, and it was second or third hand, my understanding is that Basis has made a statement, and I don't know by who, that they have no objection to this. Has anyone else heard that? Is there anyone that would be able to verify that? Please, thank you. Good afternoon, lady.
Good afternoon. We are representatives of Basis, so we're delighted to be here this afternoon. My name's Kate Gottfredson. I am the Director of Policy for Basis Education Group. And I'm here with my colleague Becky. I'm the head of school at Basis Prescott. So I'm not sure what third-hand comment the mayor and the council may have heard, but we did not make any such statement. However, what we'd really like to share with the mayor and council is what you've heard from some of our families, that our families have raised concerns. So we've been following this discussion very closely since it started. We submitted a letter, I believe, back in October. And we want to thank the council for your attention to this matter, your deliberations, and we understand this is a very difficult situation. The installation of this cell phone tower doesn't provide any clear benefit to the school, and it's clearly a concern to some of our parents. So our only request, given that this is not our property we're talking about, is really that the tower, if it must be located next to the school, on the property next to the school, that it be as far back from our property as possible. Thank you.
Question on, there was a secondary site that he had showed that was a Basis site. And
Correct.
you guys you didn't want it up there either?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we're all perfectly clear. Basis opposes this site for this facility, or you're supporting, you're not?
we're taking no position supporting or opposing this site. We've simply received communication from our families that they're concerned. We wanted to make sure that the council had really heard those concerns as well. But this isn't.
We've received. I've received a lot of communication from families and from parents, and they have concerns. And so we're here to express to you and to relay that they have those concerns. And this is one of the reasons we had no interest in putting it on our property. And in addition, that we wanted to let you know that there are families that may not be here tonight that have expressed concerns to us. And so if it has to be built there, that we would request that it just be as far away from our school as possible.
Okay, which may account for some of the communication we've had from people that don't live in Prescott Lakes but are concerned about the location. Okay, that probably makes some sense. Okay, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now it is good evening, esteemed mayor and city council
Good afternoon.
members. Okay, well, first of all, I would like to thank Elise Rose, 1690 St. Andrews Way, Prescott Lakes. First, I'd like to thank the city for requiring Mr. Destry to look for alternatives. Among those options is the Twin Lakes Market, and Mr. Destry alluded to that. The lot of Don Hirsch was interested, that Reg said would be suitable. There is an APS pole there that he said is not viable as it is built with only 2 circuits and underbuilt. He states that they won't let him change it. Do we have proof of that? And why not replace it with the type of pole they need? They have to build a new one anyway in the Commerce lot. There is also an empty lot, large lot, with varying levels of elevations, which I'm sure they could make work, across from the Prescott Lakes Sales Center. And this is at 89A and Prescott Lakes Parkway. Was that explored? Just a question. Why is this testimony not sworn in as it is a legal proceeding? Mr. Destry has stated that the reason that they want this tower is because of a gap in coverage. Just his statement, nothing proven. We do have the statements by the people on Constable. And what is extremely interesting about those few houses, and even Mr. Destry at the P&Z meeting said that not a lot of people would be impacted. And yes, I understand they want cell phone service. However, we did studies of our own, and up and down Constable, find a good service. Interesting that they chose their properties with full-on views of the electric towers. 12 years ago, I did not. I didn't want to be anywhere near the electric towers. And also interesting is that the electrical lines are hanging almost parallel with their houses. Could that be the reason that they have interference? I have a friend who lives off Mariposa, off Willow Lake Road. She's by a tower, and she has interference. So just food for thought there. So Mr. Destry has stated that that is his primary goal because of the small gap in coverage. He also has flip-flopped and stated that they want to be predominant and to take pressure off 89 and Commerce. Prescott Lakes is just about fully developed, and there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that coverage is good to great, except for these few folks on Constable. We request that a study for need is done if you are leaning towards approving this. Now, Council has said, your city attorney has said, according to the 1996 Telecommunications Act, you can't deny on the basis of health. However, just so you know, brain cancer has increased dramatically in the last 30 years. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg as we act as human guinea pigs. Brain tumors are the second leading cause of cancer death for children and young adults. Our city attorney has told us that we can't consider health. However, because of the 1996 Act. The Act also states in subsection 253B, nothing shall affect the ability of a state to protect the public safety and welfare and safeguard the rights of consumers. So this is a matter of legal interpretation. Other jurisdictions around the country have denied questionable placement of cell towers, and lawsuits against unnecessary towers and towers placed too close to cities and homes have been successful. Other cities' attorneys have recommended against for safety reasons. The current U.S. standard for radiation exposure from cell towers are among the least protective in the world. Many other countries have set standards 100 to 1,000 times lower than the U.S., and in New Zealand, 50,000 times more protective. The current U.S. FCC standards are based of safe levels of exposures have been are based on 1980s research. The Environmental Protection Agency does not agree with the outdated FCC standards, and there have been recommendations that EMR be classified as a probable human carcinogen. The California Public Utility Commission, among others, has urged the cell phone industry to not locate towers near schools and hospitals. You have written proof of these the towers can indeed catch fire and collapse, and we have many lightning strikes in this region in Prescott. There is only one street out of the Commerce Center and one street out of Basis School should the worst case scenario occur. I do agree that the likelihood is not going to be every day, but you have to consider the health and safety of your 800 school children and the kindergartners that will be starting. There is a precedent for denial by Prescott City Council. When a cell tower application wanted to be put next to an elementary school, Prescott City Council denied this. There is precedence there for denial. You have evidence that there are ways to boost cell phone perception offered by Verizon that do not require a cell tower. Please understand I am not against cell towers. I use technology every day, but to put an unnecessary with an unproven overwhelming need next to a school and homes for profit above principle flies in the face of the motto to serve and protect. Finally, sadly, if this measure is approved, I will contact all the major television stations for this story because there is dialogue across the country about this 1996 Act, and things need to be updated, addressed, and the FCC standards need to be updated to 2015, not from the 1980s. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Come on down.
How do you do? My name is Pete Begich, and I live in the cottages in Prescott Lakes. And I don't think I could do much better than what these folks have done in the way of telling you and asking you, please don't let this be installed. But I would ask, I did some research, quite a bit of research online into electromagnetic radiation and the research that's been going on in recent years. And as this lady who was just speaking said, where they find the most damage is in neural pathways in the nervous system and mostly in younger children. Now, if they think it's bad to have a phone near your ear, just imagine the hundreds of thousands of calls being relayed out of that tower 100 feet from that school. And it doesn't stop. It'll go through brick. It'll go through whatever your own phone goes through, okay? So for that, I throw out a caution. The other thing is, now I'm not sure about this, but Mr. Destry, does that tower have a diesel engine and generator at its base?
Sure.
There is an emergency diesel generator within the shelter at the base of the tower.
Okay, and does that include a tank full of diesel fuel?
Yes, there's a 210-gallon diesel belly tank that generally has about 180 gallons in it.
Okay, so that means if you know, and I live there in the cottages, and we get lightning strikes like people are popping off firecrackers, as most of you know who live in the area. In fact, I used to go out on the porch and watch it, but it's lightning strikes right in the area. Very common in the monsoons, and that's a 3 or 4 month period. Now, just say, and you can talk to any insurance agent, and he's going to tell you that if you're going to try to protect your house from lightning, you pretty much give up, because you never know the power of what strike hits you and that type of thing, and where it's going to go within the house. Well, if I've got a 65-foot tower there, that's a prime place to get a lightning strike a lot during the monsoons. Now let's just imagine that it happens to go down and hits that diesel fuel tank. You're not only going to roast the tower, it's going to fall. And there's no engineer in my mind who can tell you which way it's going to fall.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought I'd put forward my views, and I just fervently request that you try to see fit not to approve this monstrosity.
Thanks for your comments.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Good afternoon.
Well, good evening.
You said that, I didn't.
My name is Jeannie Anderson. I live in Prescott. I live in the cottages. I can't see it from my house. I went to the first planning and zoning meeting, kind of wondering what was the issue. Do you happen to have that picture, or do you have the picture of what that you put up at the first planning and zoning meeting? It shows what the tower would look like in its place. Yeah. And I sat there and I went, really? Look at that. Look at that. It's not.
Why don't you pull the mic over a little bit closer? Good. Thank you.
Usually I can project my voice well enough so that people don't have that problem, but it was rather obscene. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, the basic issue is that in order to vote yes, you have to say that you are going to allow variances. The Land Development Code is there for a reason. It's so that everything is developed consistently. To say that there might be a building there someday that might be 40 feet tall, okay, but that is 25 feet taller than a 40-foot tall building would be. So yeah, you'd still see it. It would still be there. It's not going to go away. Also, the other variance is for setback. It's sitting right next to the driveway for the school, and it's sitting right next to a business. You have to have a setback. There's a reason for that. And part of it is that you need to have a fall distance for the tower. If the tower is going to be 65 feet tall, then your setback should be at least 65 feet. Okay? A while back, you said no to a church spire that was going to be 65 feet tall. And a church spire is a lot less offensive, I think, than this is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tom, relate again to us what the vote was at P&Z.
Mayor, the vote was 4 in favor and 1 opposed, 1 no.
And the opposed was for what reason?
Again, that was Chairman Menser, who indicated that he didn't believe or think that the Verizon had done a good enough job looking at alternate locations.
Okay. Craig, do you see any opportunity in that area at all where the city could be of some help, maybe through easements or right-of-ways or expanding the right-of-way. Willow Lake Road, one of these days, is going to have to be wider. We know that with the activity that's going. The city is on one side, the county's on the other. Is that correct?
Do you have the map, Tom, of the city limits there?
It would be easy to recommend the pole be in the middle of the roundabout. You could go 100 feet, put a light on it, but probably ADOT would have a problem with that.
Craig, let me ask Mr. Destry, if I can get a different scale map from you, please.
Here's a zoom out Google Earth if you want it. Well, one question is city limits, and I don't see the city limits delineated on that map, so it'd be good to have a map which accurately delineates them, number one. But number two, we did community development, I did, community development, did meet with Mr. Vestry, and that occasioned, I believe, this was after planning and zoning and probably early January, just or like in that vicinity. The objective of that meeting was exactly to ask Verizon to take a look at alternate sites, and that's what they did. With respect to the question about are there rights of way available, I think Mr. Vestry has addressed that. If there is a question about could additional right of way be obtained, I think that the answer is usually yes. But there would be a cost to that, and certainly there's a process for that. I doubt that the city could condemn property for a private purpose, for one thing, but certainly there are no plans that I'm aware of at the present time to acquire right-of-way for the widening of Willow Lake Road, although, we could take a look at the transportation future traffic volumes and so forth and see what those are. But there are no plans that would delineate where that right-of-way would be located. So, I think that certainly Verizon has done due diligence, certainly depending upon your viewpoint, whether that's adequate due diligence, then, that's arguable. But certainly they have responded to the city's request to look at alternate sites.
Mayor, to your question about the city limits, Willow Lake Road, the north right-of-way line of Willow Lake Road is the city limits. On the north side, it would be the county. But for the exception of Twin Lakes Market and the parcel immediately behind it, the vacant parcel, that's also within the city.
So Willow Lake, which we own, is not in the city?
That's correct.
So you did say that there was a parcel right back there that was owned by the city?
Not owned by the city, but within the city limits, Councilman.
Okay.
Yeah. It's right here, immediately behind and adjacent to Twin Lakes Market. That is currently vacant.
Did I not hear properly from the gentleman from Verizon that he did not check with the folks from Hughes about a tower on their back property lot? They did.
What I was saying is that the location that would be feasible on the southeast portion, the best location to put the site, wasn't going to work because of the hill. I did not speak with the folks from Hughes.
Yeah. Well taken. When that road was abandoned behind Hughes, when the Willow Creek Road used to come out or at that angle, that whole right-of-way was abandoned, and whether it ever was given back or sold back to the adjoining property owners on each side, but the Hughes property ended up with half, if it was ever abandoned. Maybe it wasn't when that road was blocked off, because that used to go and be an intersection with Highway 89.
And Mayor, you can see that on the map.
Yeah. And the elevation was growing pretty good along the back there, but
Seems like that'd be a good spot. Back behind Harmon's Meat Cutters.
used to be Harmon's Meat Market, yeah.
You know, Mayor,
50 years ago, yeah.
You know, is it a safety issue? I think, yes, it is. For both sides, I think pro and con, it's a safety issue to put this in there. Is there a need for better coverage there? Yes, I experienced that firsthand. For Prescott Lakes, Granite Dells, I think you could help them both. I just think we need to find another spot. And, you know, I think we need to look a little bit harder and maybe work with Verizon, help them out whatever way they can, and go to an area that's already got a lot of towers there, a lot of lines there. You know, sticking this, it is an intrusion for the neighborhood.
Mayor, I would like to articulate why I am opposed to granting this special use permit. I think based on the record, which includes everything in your council packet and what we've heard today from people, there will be a significant negative impact on the residents in the surrounding area, on property and people. I think it will adversely affect property values, and we have a letter from an experienced realtor to that effect. And we heard the testimony of a realtor here saying the same thing. People just don't want to buy near a cell tower. That's going to affect property values. Secondly, the height doesn't meet the criteria for a special use permit. 65 feet is quite a bit higher, 25 feet higher than the 40-foot limit in this zone. And yes, that's a compatibility factor, but the setback is a health and safety consideration. And that's really where my objection lies. If you combine the fall zone with the fire danger, this isn't the right site. There's a significant risk of harm to people and property at this particular site, so close to a school, so close to other businesses. Mr. Destry stated that Verizon can't meet the 65-foot setback for the pole. So the option we're given for a condition of approval by staff isn't going to work. So I don't see how Verizon can live with the conditions that we are asked to adopt here if we want to approve this. Furthermore, there's only one escape route. If there is a fire for the school on a one-way street, that poses a problem. You know, trying to evacuate a school of children is really difficult. It takes time. And I have really serious concerns about posing that kind of risk to children who are vulnerable, who don't have the ability to take care of themselves, who are under the complete care of adults at the school. I'm sure they have a plan for emergencies, but there are circumstances when those plans just don't arise to the level of the risk. So those are the reasons why I'm opposed to this special use permit. I do think that there are other options and they need to be explored. We've heard a little bit about the Hughes Plumbing Supply land. That's got to be a possibility. The land that is west of the Twin Lakes Market is not developed. What's going to happen with that? Has Mr. Destry even talked to that property owner about locating there?
Is that the one with all the curbs?
Yeah, that's the one with all the curbs. They've been sitting there for years. So I think there are other options that can be explored, and this is just not the right site.
Anyone else? Tom, the Land Development Code, the LDC, we are the commercial part of the Prescott Lakes was developed under that code. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so going in, it had to be acknowledged that 40 foot with setbacks was a condition of the Land Development Code that that development came under.
That's correct, Mayor, and I would add that the previous zoning, the translation of zoning in 2003, 2004, going from the old code to the new code, had the very same setbacks and height requirements, so that precedes much further. And I'm not sure when the property was rezoned to industrial transition, but I believe, if I recall correctly, it was in the mid-'80s or late '80s.
Yeah. Then if the city agreed to a 40-foot pole, which obviously we've been told doesn't work, but at least the city has stuck with their commitment under the LDC for that area. Okay?
That's true, Mayor, and specifically the performance criteria outlined within Article 2.4.49 of the Land Development Code relating to telecommunication facilities.
Okay. Well, I feel like we need to stick by the commitment that the people that bought property in there was under that illusion, at least, that they would be allowed to go to a 40-foot height if they so desired with a conditional use permit. So, do we have a motion, any kind?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to deny special use permit 14-001 for the reasons I previously stated.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for denial. Let's vote. Oh, there we go.
Fails 3-3.
Oh, crap.
Go ahead and make your comment. You screwed up.
I screwed up. Motion to deny. I'm in favor of the motion to deny. Sorry.
We'll call the vote again.
Okay.
The motion was to deny the conditional use permit.
Okay.
Or the special use permit, based on the reasoning outlined by Councilwoman Wilcox just prior to the motion being made.
Are you ready?
Motion to deny is the motion.
Ready?
Light your lights
Yes.
again.
There you go.
The motion passes 4-2 with Councilman
Okay.
Lazelle and Councilman Blair dissenting.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, thank you. We have one other item on the agenda.
Item J, fiscal year 16 and subsequent budgets, council discussion, direction, and possible action.
Mayor and Council, this is a standing item on the agenda. As you're well aware, we have the first council or annual council budget workshop on Thursday at 9 o'clock at the library. We have no presentation today.
Okay.
Come on, really? Something?
Charlie with the cape.
We're adjourned.